Hello everyone, this is part 18 of What If Naruto Was Banished and Becomes Raikage, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Last time on Raikage. With the Fourth Shinobi World War now at an end, and the Akatsuki back on the move, things will start to change even more and at a much faster pace, thought Zhuge. He looked up at the storm clouds above, formed from Anasu's Orochimaru, and could not help but find them fitting. To him, they signified the storm of change that Naruto had brought about the elemental continent in the past few weeks, when he won the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, and this storm of change would only grow in a few months' time. Yet for some unknown reason Zhuge had a strange feeling, almost like a premonition that there was an even greater storm upon the horizon, and it would bring an even greater level of change and upheaval. One that no one, not even Naruto or himself, could predict, and their world would never be the same again, whether it be for good or evil. But despite this feeling, Zhuge chuckled silently to himself, finding it amusing that one young man could bring about so much commotion and disruption to the shinobi world. Soon, Zhuge turned and walked towards his people to help with the caring of the wounded and getting everything ready for their return journey to New Kumo. Several days later in Konoha. It had been just over 3 weeks since the Battle of Konoha and the end of Fourth Great Shinobi World War. During that time, Kusagaku, Hidden Grass, had sent both Konoha and New Kumo an envoy of their surrender and quickly agreed on a settlement. In the settlement, Kusa agreed to a non-aggression pact with New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance and agreed to pay quarter of the repairs to the damage done to Konoha. Sadly, even this amount of money would not make much difference in the financial difficulty the village found itself in. Just as Naruto had stated in his meeting with Tsunade and the Konoha Council, given the cost of the war and the cost for the rebuilding of the village, along with the compensation that they have to make to Naruto for the attacks made against him, and reimbursements to his inheritance, Konoha would be in a deep recession for many years to come. And just when people thought things could not get any worse, Naruto's book on his life in Konoha was released, painting a none-too-flattering image of the village. When people learned of this, several high-ranking businessmen and lords took their business and mission requests to other villages, as they did not want to be associated with a village that was known for beating children. It got even worse, when Gaara sent an official letter stating that he was annulling Tsunade's alliance with Konoha in favor of allying with New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance. Not to mention divisions were beginning to form in the village, when the truth as to who Naruto really was began to spread among the populace. Many of course did not believe that Naruto was the son of the Yondaime at first, believing that he was lying. But when Tsunade herself officially announced that Naruto was indeed the son of the Yondaime, those who had doubted Naruto's lineage had no other choice but to accept the truth. With these revelations, many of the younger generation couldn't even look at some of their parents, when the names and actions were mentioned in Naruto's book. While others who had known Naruto personally, fully realized how much of a raw deal Naruto had received from the village. Those who had persecuted Naruto in the past had to face the cold, harsh reality. They had created hell for the son of their hero, the man who not only sacrificed his life to save their village, but also his son. People couldn't even look at each other, knowing how ugly they were on the inside, to abuse such an innocent boy. But despite all this, there were still those who held the grudges. Whether it was because he held the Kyuubi in him or they believed he was a threat to the village or they blamed him for the pitiful state that most of them lived in now and the lives that were lost when he let Orochimaru and his allies attack them. Regardless, this division hampered Konoha's recovery. Numerous people argued over who was right and who was wrong, resulting in much fighting where villages were unable to rebuild. Currently sitting at a sake bar, the only remaining one left standing in the village, the majority of the members of the Konoha 11 as well as the Konohamaru Corp, were seated around a large table. The group was discussing the events that had played out the past few weeks, given how they had little time to talk to one another, with the rebuilding of the village and all. "Man, it's been one wild couple of weeks," stated Kiba, after take a large gulp of sake. "No kidding," replied Konohamaru, as he took a sip of his own. "I still can't believe that Naruto took advantage of the entire war, and fucking used us to take out Orochimaru and his allies and make New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance more powerful," muttered Ino. "Well, to quote Naruto-san, believe it," replied Neji. Yay, well, I still have trouble accepting that Naruto was able to do it in the first place. He was never exactly the master tactician or strategist type, said Kiba. People can change, especially when betrayed by their home and find out that their own father was part of the reason their life sucked, answered Shikamaru. Still, I didn't think he could change this much. I don't get how he did it all, replied Kiba, exasperated. His plan wasn't that complicated, Kiba. Just simply combining two similar but highly effective strategies: divide and conquer with bait and bleed. The first part, involving his attack on the hold and his intervention on Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, were part of his divide and conquer strategy, wherewith his freeing the prisoners in the hold. Naruto gained the trust and support of the rebel factions in Kiri and Mizu no Kuni, Water Country, who would be invaluable allies in his invasion of Kiri and Mizu no Kuni. While his intervention at Nami no Kuni allowed him to place a large number of shinobi there without raising suspicion, they would be positioned to come up from behind the Kiri shinobi, who would be in retreat after the battle here, allowing the new Kumo forces to surround the remaining Kiri shinobi. The intervention at Nami no Kuni also forced Orochimaru and his allies to accelerate their plans in their attack on us, since originally they had planned to open a third front from Nami no Kuni and weaken our forces further before launching their main attack, explained Shikamaru, continuing on. Naruto of course wanted them to launch their attack on us soon, since he was preparing his own forces. They would invade both Oto and Kiri, when the defenses were weakened, after Orochimaru and the Mitsuhide took a significant number of their forces to attack us. After that, Naruto used his bait and bleed strategy, where he used us as bait to lure in Orochimaru and his allies in one place and had us keep them busy and weaken their forces, until he and his forces were ready to attack. Allowing Naruto and his forces to eliminate Orochimaru's coalition with minimum effort or loss. His plan also probably involved weakening us at the same time, making New Kumo the strongest shinobi village, finished Shikamaru. Not only that, added Neji, but with Oto and Kiri now under pro-Heavenly Alliance hands, and us as a protectorate, Naruto has made the Heavenly Alliance the strongest force on the continent. Given how both the new rulers of Kiri, Oto and the rulers of their home nations will seek an alliance with the Heavenly Alliance, just like Suna has, or try and join it, like Umi no Kuni, Sea Country, Tsuki no Kuni, Moon Country, and Nami no Kuni. Both Kiri and Oto will require the resources of the Heavenly Alliance to help their nations and villages rebuild. But how did he know that we would ask for an alliance after the battle at Nami no Kuni and the battle here, that Sasuke would attack him and that Akira would try to have him arrested? Asked Kiba. Not to mention that Danzo would try to kidnap shinobi from both New Kumo and Takagakure Hidden Waterfall. At this question, Shikamaru simply replied, "Know your enemies and know yourself. You can win 100 battles without a single loss." Huh? Asked Kiba, confused. Shikamaru just sighed and muttered, "Troublesome," before answering, "It's a quote from the famous strategist Sun Tzu. To put it simply, Naruto was able to predict what we would do, because he knew us, and if you know an opponent well enough, you can predict what they will do in certain situations. For example, he knew that one of the civilian council members would try something against him, once his identity was revealed, and he knew that if he riled Sasuke up enough he would attack him. As for Danzo, well, it's no secret that he's fanatic when it comes to Konoha's security and safety." Kiba could only nod. It did make sense. What surprises me most is how strong Naruto's Ranbaka Stormbreaker limit has made him. I mean, being able to defeat Orochimaru, the Tsuchikage, the Mitsuhide, and the leaders of both Kusa and the Hanya clan, along with all 4 Hokages. "That's crazy," stated Choji. "You're wrong," murmured Konohamaru, gaining everyone's attention. "Ni-san didn't become this strong simply because of his bloodline. Sure, that may have helped, but from what he told me when we spoke, he trained his ass off nearly every day for the past 10 years to get as strong as he is now. That is indeed the most logical conclusion, given the level of power he possesses. Especially given the fact that Naruto-sama was trained by Jiraiya-sama himself. He was trained by Akechi Mitsuhide, Miyoshi Sayuri, and the famed Neimoriru, Sleeping Dragon, Juge Liang, and his wife. Also, we cannot ignore that Naruto-sama was most likely trained by Killer Bee to control Kyuubi's power. After being trained by so many powerful master shinobi, it is not surprising that he has become so powerful," stated Shino. No one in the group could disagree with Shino's logic. Regardless of how strong Naruto-kun has become or who he is now, he is still Naruto-kun and he is still our friend, spoke Hinata for the first time. "Are you sure of that, Hinata?" Naruto isn't exactly the same person that he used to be. He's a lot colder, uncaring and in some ways crueler. There was a time when Naruto would do next to anything for Konoha or any of us, and last thing he would do was hurt the village, rebutted Sakura. She had heard from Tsunade what Naruto had said in the council meeting, about how she was only saved from the hold because she was with Kureni, Lee and Choji. Despite understanding why Naruto felt this way, it still saddened her. Naruto-kun may have indeed changed in certain aspects, Haruno, replied Hinta rather coolly, but in the ways that count the most, he is still the same. Naruto-kun said so himself, that he could have easily have waited until the battle was over to attack, but did not, since he still cared for us, his friends. He showed that before, when he came to save Nami no Kuni, not because it was strategically important for the war, but because he cared for the people of Nami no Kuni. Hinata is right, exclaimed Konohamaru. If he's really has become a different person, he wouldn't have saved us when we were losing the battle. Besides, even if he does hate the village, can any of you really blame him? The village practically spat on the Yondaim's dying wish to treat Ni-san as a hero. And, then threw him out and tried to use him to destroy Akatsuki. The rest of the group remained silent and mulling over what facts said. The village had betrayed Naruto, and if they had been in his shoes, they would have been resentful too. After a few minutes of silence, Mogi decided to speak. So what do you guys think will happen at the coming alliance gathering? Hard to say, since Naruto holds all the cards and can give as little or take as much as he wants from us. He knows that we're desperate and can't do anything against him. I mean, without the Heavenly Alliance we're screwed. Irregardless of what happens, Naruto practically owns Konoha, replied Shikamaru. He couldn't help but remember another quote from the great tactician Sun Tzu. To win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. But to subdue the enemy without fighting is. And that was exactly what Naruto did. Even if we do get the help we need, we're in bad condition and we needed to make concessions just to become a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance. Not to mention the bad publicity the village has been receiving lately. It'll be a long time before the village returns to what it once was, stated Tenten. That is if it can, to begin with, commented Konohamaru. With Tsunade sitting at her desk, Tsunade was in the middle of a meeting with Danzo, Koharu and Homura, with Shizune standing next to her. The meeting was, of course, about the status of the village. When Shizune handed her another form to look over with her advisors, the female Hokage could only sigh with annoyance. The past few weeks had been an absolute nightmare for her. Suddenly, a large puff of smoke appeared behind Danzo, revealing Jiraiya. Jiraiya, you're late. You were supposed to be back a week ago, said the irritated Kage. Ahime, if I didn't know better, I'd think you had been worried about me, spoke Jiraiya with a slight cheesy grin. HMPH. You wish, pervert, replied Tsunade as she scoffed at his remark. Well, despite your concern, said Jiraiya, there was a reason for my being late. And what would be this reason be? Asked Koharu, with a slightly aggravated tone. A serious look appeared on Jiraiya's face, something that was not seen very often. The Akatsuki. At the mention of the infamous organization, the listeners stiffened and came at attention. What about them? Are they planning to make their move? Asked Tsunade. Not exactly, or, at least not for a while. Someone already made their own move against them, replied Jiraiya. Upon hearing this, Tsunade was surprised. Who would be bold enough to attack the Akatsuki? But just as she began to wonder, she just as quickly realized the answer. Naruto, proclaimed the female Hokage. Right on the first guess, Haim. So how exactly did he attack them? Asked Danzo. Did he hit one of their bases or did he ambush one of their teams? A bit of both actually. He attacked all 9 of them at once, since according to my intel they had gathered together in one place in person, to discuss Naruto appearing in Konoha during the war and revealing himself as the Raikage. Somehow Naruto's intelligence learned of their meeting. He sent in a full platoon made up of his top shinobi led by Zhuge Liang, along with New Kumo's entire storm division. Tsunade and Shizune along with the elders were shocked, since no one had ever made such a massive assault on Akatsuki. Naruto didn't lead the attack himself? Asked Shizune in surprise. No, my guess is that Naruto didn't want to give Akatsuki the opportunity to capture him, nor did he want to leave his village vulnerable with his strongest ninja gone, replied Jiraiya. That was also probably the same reason why he kept Yugito and the others with him. And what exactly was the result of the battle? inquired Danzo. A battle between two such powerful groups would leave casualties high, making the losing side weak and open to attack. Naruto's people sent them running with their tails between their legs. Jiraiya, are you serious? You're telling me that they were able to send 9 S-class Newtonins running, without Naruto or his bodyguard's help? Tsunade questioned in astonishment. Even though she knew that Naruto had many strong people on his side, she still found it hard to believe that he had a group of ninja capable of driving back the Akatsuki by themselves. Pretty much. Although to be fair, Naruto's people had him at a disadvantage from the start. The Akatsuki were gathered in a large cave when Naruto's ninja surrounded them, where they managed to limit Akatsuki fighting power by keeping the battle in the cave, explained Jiraiya, continuing. Once they were separated, the Storm Division rushed the base, and with Zhuge team, overwhelmed the Akatsuki with their superior numbers. Naruto also sent in Seiwa Anasu to help in the battle, finished Jiraiya. Tsunade frowned, remembering Anasu, who led the invasion of Mizu no Kuni and single-handedly conquered the port city of Seiru. Jiraiya, do you know what kinds of losses New Kumo and the Akatsuki suffered from their battle? Asked Koharu. Neither side really took any serious losses, as all the members of the Akatsuki were able to somehow escape. And what of the new Kumo forces? Asked Homura. According to my sources, they didn't suffer any losses either, no one was killed. The conversation about the battle continued for the next hour until Tsunade dismissed the elders. She gave Shizune some folders to file away and the rest of the day off for her and Yamato, whom she was now engaged to. They were planning to have their wedding next year in the beginning of spring. Once Shizune left the office, Tsunade opened a drawer and took out a sake bottle and 2 small drinking plates. Seeing this, Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. I thought you quit. I started again. After the past couple of weeks we've had, I need a drink. Jiraiya couldn't help but agree with his former teammate. With all the shit that went down, it was all enough to drive anyone to the bottle, just to make sense of it all. As the two Sannin took deep gulps, they began to talk about the village and how it was recovering. So how are things going here? Jiraiya asked. Hard, replied Tsunade, as she took a sip of sake. 3/4 of the village is in ruins and we're short of everything. Most of the villagers are living in tents right now or in the underground bunkers. We might as well just blow up what's left and start from scratch. Jiraiya only nodded at the logic. He could clearly see from the window, the flat area that Naruto created from his battle with Orochimaru and the 100 meters wide and mile-long trench that Naruto's Inazuma lightning flash. As he gazed outside, flashes of memories of the epic battle came. Toad Sennin shook his head slightly. Zhuge had been right. They had indeed witnessed history in the making. Naruto resurrected a legendary bloodline, solidified the Heavenly Alliance, shifted the position of the strongest shinobi nation to New Kumo and was declared the strongest shinobi and Kage to have ever lived. Jiraiya was brought back out of his mussing when he heard Tsunade speaking to him. Practically everything needs rebuilding or repairs and I'm swamped every day with more paperwork than ever I wanted to see in a lifetime. But the worst thing about all this is that we simply don't have the funds to pay for it everything, and barely have enough ninja to protect the village, let alone the borders. The only thing I don't have to worry about is the village orphanage. Why's that? Well, it seems that before Naruto left, he arranged for Iruka to take ownership of the Namikaze estate, and arranged for an ample sum of his inheritance to be sent to an account controlled by Iruka to redevelop the estate into the new orphanage. He's even calling it the Uzumaki Kushina Orphanage, at Naruto's request, she explained. I guess Naruto has soft spot for orphans, given how he was one as well, Jiraiya stated with a slight tone of shame. Maybe, but it's not the full reason why he did it. What do you mean? Well, as you know, the truth about Naruto being Minato's son didn't go over well with many people. Since a division has formed in the village between those who still hate Naruto and those who finally realize that they were wrong about Naruto, explained Tsunade. I'm guessing that the ones who hate Naruto are made up of those from the older generation, and the other half is made up of those from the younger generation, stated Jiraiya. Pretty much, although some of the older generation has realized their mistake and have the decency to be ashamed of themselves. But what has this got to do with Naruto and the orphanage? I was getting to that, said Tsunade, with a slightly annoyed tone, taking a quick sip before speaking. You see, Naruto knew that there would still be a lot of resentment in the village towards him, and that it's unlikely he'll ever win over everyone in the older generation. This resentment could eventually spread in Konoha into later generations, resulting in Konoha growing to hate Naruto as much as Iwa hated the Yondaime. So to help avoid a future war, Naruto decided to win over the next generation, by building the new orphanage. Naruto has already paid for everything they'll need to run the orphanage, as well as any fees they might have if they choose to go to the academy. Those who don't, will be given just enough money to help them get started off into whatever career they wish. So he'll win those kids over, and give himself good PR while making those that still hate Naruto look more like bigots, stated Jiraiya. Oh, it's more than just that, murmured Tsunade with a sly grin. By doing this, Naruto is also hitting Danzo. 80% of Danzo's root division is made of former orphans. With the orphanage, Naruto is crippling his recruitment drive knowing they've entered it. I'm gonna assume the brat modified the seals and the barriers so none of Danzo's people can infiltrate the estate either. Correct, and Danzo can't do anything about it because the orphanage doesn't follow under shinobi jurisdiction, and his civilian council puppets can't do a thing. It's totally Iruka's control. Does Danzo know all this? Jiraiya asked. Of course. The old fart realized it, the moment it was announced, replied Tsunade with a smirk. And how did he take it? Not well, he's probably cursing Naruto from hell and back right now. And how did you come to realize all this? Iruka told me Naruto's plan when he asked me to put him on the full-time reserve list. And you let him? Asked Jiraiya, with mild surprise. TCH, it wasn't like the plan was going to harm the village in any real way and it only screws with Danzo. Besides, some good might come out of this war and those kids deserve a better chance at life, given how they lost their parents. There is also the chance, continued Tsunade, that this thing with the orphans is Naruto's way in keeping Konoha in check. It would help keep Konoha divided in some way, so on the slight chance that Konoha tries anything against the Alliance, those orphans and other sympathizers will support Naruto and the Heavenly Alliance, making it easier for them to take us out. Hopefully, for the village's sake that day will never come, replied Jiraiya as he took yet another sip of sake, Tsunade nodding in agreement. But still, commented Jiraiya with a slight smirk, I have to admit. That brat never ceases to surprise me. I always knew he had a slight sneaky streak in him. But still, this is on a whole other level. The brat certainly has changed, Tsunade agreed. Speaking of changes, have you heard how Iwa and the other nations that aren't with the Heavenly Alliance are reacting to the news? Asked Jiraiya. No, I haven't, replied the female Kage. Well, it seems that they've declared Naruto a SS rank ninja, he explained. Are you serious? Spoke Tsunade with surprise, interrupting Jiraiya. If what he said was true, then Iwa and the other villagers were recognizing that Naruto was most powerful and dangerous shinobi alive. No one, not even Minato, was given the SS rank. Dead serious. They're also ordering all their ninja to flee at the sight of him, regardless of how many of them there are, finished Jiraiya. Just like his father, muttered Tsunade. Although I had half expected Iwa to declare war on New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance once they learned Naruto's heritage. Ryoku, Yondaime Tsuchikage, and the other higher-ups in Iwa are that stupid. They know that if they go to war with New Kumo and the Alliance, Iwa would be wiped out. So he's alive then? Asked Tsunade, assuming Ryoku to be dead given the injuries he suffered. If alive, then his ninja career would be over. Not really sure, since Iwa has tightened their security after the battle here. It could be all a ruse to keep us from acting against them. I find it hard to believe that he survived the injuries he suffered, and even if he did, it's unlikely that Iwa would follow a Tsuchikage who can't use chakra anymore, mused Jiraiya. But regardless, he continued, it seems that whoever is in charge is wise enough to end the fighting. I hear Iwa has sent a petition to New Kumo for a ceasefire. Tsunade raised her right eyebrow stunned, but quickly accepted it, as it made sense. Only a fool would try and fight a power like the Heavenly Alliance alone. The blonde Hokage let out a sad sigh. I should have released Naruto's heritage the moment that Koharu and the others suggested that we banish him. If I had, it might have prevented him from being banished in the first place, or at the very least I should have just resigned and gone with him. Don't blame yourself, Haim. If you had released his heritage it would have stopped the kid from being banished, but Ryoku would have learned about it and sent countless ninja after him. He might have been desperate enough to declare war just to get Naruto and have his revenge. As for resigning, if you had done that, then Danzo would have maneuvered himself to become Hokage. Don't think I need to tell you what would have happened then. If there is anyone who's to blame here, it's me, continued the Sennin. I was his godfather, and it was my responsibility to raise him, or at the very least look out for him. But instead I took the easy way out and left him in Sensei's care, using the excuse that I wasn't the right person to raise him. Tsunade said nothing, since it was obvious that Jiraiya hated himself for this. She remembered the angry and disgusted look Minato gave him when he learned what happened to Naruto. Well, it doesn't matter now, we can't change the past, no matter how much we want to. That's funny coming from you. Then again, you are becoming philosophical in your old Agarush. Jiraiya joked, before Tsunade punched him right in the face. He was sent flying into the villages below. Smart Alec bastard, muttered Tsunade. In New Kumogakur. Sitting at his desk, the Rokudaime Raikage, aka the Raiden no Kami, god of thunder and lightning, Uzumaki Naruto was listening to the debriefing from his senseis Zhuge Liang, Akechi Mitsuhide and his best friend Seiwa Anasu. And after that, they were able to get away, finished Zhuge Liang. I apologize for failing in our mission, Raikage-sama. As leader I take full responsibility. There will be no need for that sensei, said Naruto. It was rather optimistic of me to think that we could capture or take out all of them a single attack. The plan was perfectly executed, unfortunately we underestimated them slightly, answered Zhuge Liang. Regardless, we were still able to show Akatsuki that we are a force to be reckoned with. They'll be more hesitant to act against us, giving us some breathing room to solidify our new position as the strongest shinobi nation. Not to mention we field-tested the new and improved chakra armor, which worked perfectly and are ready to be used for high-level missions by the way. At this the other three men nodded. The mission wasn't a total loss. Excuse me Raikage-sama, but I was wondering if you have received any sort of petition from Iwa about the possible ceasefire yet? Asked Mitsuhide. I did just yesterday from one of our outposts along the northern sea via Messenger Hawk. So it would seem that Masato-san's, head of Naruto's intelligence division CIND, information was correct that the new Godaime Tsuchikage Berigu is seeking to end hostilities with us, stated Zhuge Liang. Yes. Although, I'm certain that it's only to buy time for him to rebuild his forces. He's trying to maintain the ruse that his father Ryoku is still alive, by signing it as him, answered Naruto with a serious look. Do you still plan to accept the ceasefire? Inquired Anasu. Yes, we may be able to deal with Iwa without having to fight them. Besides, the Tsuchikage's petition mentioned something interesting. Interesting? How so? Asked Zhuge Liang with a slightly raised eyebrow. It seems that the Tsuchikage plans to send his sister Kokimi to negotiate the terms of the ceasefire. I didn't know that the Yondaime Tsuchikage had a daughter, said Anasu with slight surprise. Well, he did, but she prefers to remain unnoticed and keeps to the shadows, stated Naruto. According to Uki, the Chi no Megami, goddess of earth, she's quite dangerous and very devious. A very potent and dangerous mix, you'll have to be careful around her, advised Zhuge Liang. So where do you plan to meet her? Asked Anasu. I plan to invite her and her escort to come here during the alliance gathering, Naruto replied, which gained some concern. Are you sure that is wise Raikage-sama? Would it not be better to meet in a neutral location like Tetsu no Kuni Iron Country? Asked Zhuge Liang. Normally yes, but since the alliance gathering is nearing, I believe it would best to have it here. Perhaps once Kokimi sees how strong both we are with her own eyes, she can convince her brother that waging a war of revenge against me would be foolhardy. But what if she tries to assassinate you? Mitsuhide asked. If she is half as intelligent as Uki makes her out to be, she'll know it'll be suicide to try. She's probably just here to spy on us, not to assassinate me, replied Naruto. If that is the case, then why are you going to let her enter the village? Asked Anasu. Simple. Right now Kokimi and Berigu are biding their time to strike back at me and are attempting to gather as much information on what we're capable of before they plan anything. They will do whatever they can to get as much information on us as possible. So the best way to deal with that problem is to bring Kokimi here, allowing her to see New Kumo and control what she sees and learns in it, where we can feed her some misinformation at the same time. This will quench Iwa's desire for information for a while, and at the same time keep them in check. Some of the information that we'll feed her will make her and her brother overestimate us in certain things and underestimate us in others. A clever plan Raikage-sama, but doesn't it still hold some danger in backfiring? Queried Zhuge Liang. True, But victory cannot be achieved without some risk, replied Naruto. Moreover, was it not Zhuge Liang-sensei, who once told me that one of the best ways to achieve victory in a war, is to control what your enemy sees, hears and knows, so to control their actions. So I did, answered Zhuge Liang with a small smile. Once the matter of Iwa was settled, Naruto decided proceed with the next issue. So tell me, have Yue Ying-sensei, Zhuge Liang's wife, and Kisuke finished analyzing that body of pain that you captured? Asked Naruto. They are still examining it, but they'll give a full report once they've finished, replied Anasu. Very well, you're all dismissed. I want a full written battle report on each of your battles along with the others. Hi Raikage-sama, the men chorused. Once they left the room, Naruto swung his chair around to look out the window into the bright orange sunset across the sky. Seeing it, Naruto could not help but remember the days he used to watch such sunsets on the Hokage monument. Thinking back then also reminded Naruto of how far he had come and how everything he had done in the past 10 years had led up to him becoming Raikage and forming the Heavenly Alliance. The funny thing was, all of this happened because Konoha had banished him. If they hadn't, he would never have met his senseis and later become the Rokudaime Raikage. 1. In a Megakure. Recovering from his recent battle with the forces of New Kumo, Nagato stood in a large room not far from Konan, who was preparing to replace Animal Path. As Konan was finishing up, both Nagato and Konan sensed a new presence enter the room. This presence was not an unfamiliar, so they relaxed the guard slightly. I see that you're recovering nicely from our unexpected scuffle with New Kumo, commented the orange mask-wearing man. I could say the same thing for you as well, Madara, replied Nagato, looking at the man's new arm. Yes, I have, said the former Uchiha leader. So what should we do? Konan asked. The plan has not changed, we must simply proceed carefully, replied Madara. I believe our plan has changed a great deal more than you're willing to admit, Madara, Konan retorted. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's forces were somehow able to find us, when we gathered together in person for the first time in years. Not only that, but they were nearly able to capture us. They most likely know that we reside here in a Megakure, since they were able to somehow steal the Salamander contract without us knowing. I'll admit I've greatly underestimated the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's resources and abilities. I never imagined that the Uzumaki clan was in reality the legendary Stormcaller clan, let alone that he would somehow awaken their lost bloodline. I know that this does complicate matters greatly. But still, I'm certain we can overcome the problem, we just have to be more careful, replied Madara calmly. On the inside though, Madara was greatly vexed. At this remark, Konan frowned, unconvinced. If you are so confident that we can still win, then perhaps you could tell us where New Kumo is. Even Zetsu has been unable to find it. You could also explain why the Raikage hasn't sent his forces to invade here. Sadly, I am unable to locate the village. I believe there is some kind of barrier that is protecting the village from detection, answered Madara. How would that be possible? Asked Nagato, since he knew about Madara's Jikuken Edo time-space migration, which allowed him to locate anyone and teleport to them. Little would surprise me at what he can do. Since he has access to the lost library of the White Lotus Society, responded Madara. You mean he actually found the library of Benzaiten? Asked Nagato in shock. So it does exist, I thought it was just a myth, Konan murmured said in equal surprise. I can assure you it does existence, and it also explains why New Kumo and this Heavenly Alliance have become so powerful so quickly, answered Madara, with slight annoyance. He had spent many years before he began his plan with the Biju, searching for the lost library. This makes them that much more dangerous, spoke Nagato. That still doesn't explain why New Kumo or its allies haven't attacked us here, Konan reminded them. More than likely the Kyuubi Jinchuriki knows this is our main base of operations and is watching our borders in the hope of keeping tabs on some of our movements, replied the former founder of Konoha. At this Nagato frowned, but nodded. How exactly shall we proceed? For now, we'll rest and recover our strength and wait for the right moment to strike. Sooner or later an opportunity will arise, answered Madara. That is if New Kumo or the Heavenly Alliance doesn't hit us before then, muttered Konan. If I didn't knowing any better, I would think that you're losing faith in our cause, spoke Madara. I am just stating how things are, retorted Konan, as she narrowed her eyes slightly. Madara said nothing and teleported away. Once he was gone, Konan turned to her childhood friend. Nagato, I don't like this. I don't trust him. At all. Nor do I Conan, but Madara is a means to an end, and when we have all 9 Biju, I will deal with him myself, stated Nagato. But why do we even have to go that far? Perhaps we can end this before things get out of hand, said Conan. What do you mean? We could negotiate a peace treaty with the Raikage. His goals are obviously the same as ours, and this heavenly alliance that he is building, is growing more and more. From what we've heard, Kiri, Konoha, their host nations and several other nations are already attempting to ally or join the alliance. Eventually he could actually unite the entire elemental continent and create a lasting peace just like we've always dreamed of. Both of you are even from the same clan, so surely he would be willing to at least talk with us, she explained. For a moment or two Nagato remained silent, as if thinking over what Conan suggested, but then said, no. Although the Raikage's goals are similar to our own and are noble, they are still naive. True peace can only be gained by making people realize the true horror of war, which they will, when we have all 9 Biju and create the weapon that will allow us to destroy the shinobi nations in an instant. The Raikage's dream is only a fantasy. Eventually people will break their alliances and treaties and the Heavenly Alliance will fall apart like so many others and war will just come again. We've committed to this path and we will see it through to the very end, no matter what, replied Nagato. Are you with me, Conan? Conan did not answer right away, but eventually she let out a sigh and said, I am with you Nagato, no matter what. Nagato just nodded. Lightning Daimyo's royal palace, New Kumo, over a month later. Naruto sat in a comfortable chair next to a large warm fire chuckling away, as he read his favorite manga, Tadaki's World. The room itself was not too big, but not too small either. It had 4 comfortable armchairs that were near large fire, with a large desk and chair to the side, with 2 large windows behind it. On the other side of the room was a large bookshelf. Soon enough though, Naruto heard a knock on the large double doors of the room. When he said, enter, a middle-aged woman opened it and entered the room. Excuse me, Raikage-sama, but Anasu Dono is here to speak to you, said the woman. Ah, yes thank you Jade, let him in, responded Naruto, with a smile, as he put his manga down. The woman nodded and let Anasu in. Naruto greeted his friend and invited him to sit on the chair in front of him. Anasu then decided to speak, so Naruto, why do you need to talk to me at this hour? I'm sorry for taking you away from your family Anasu, but there is something important I need to tell you, answered Naruto. Oh, what's the problem? Asked Anasu. A few hours ago, Shion contacted me through her projection ball about something important, explained Naruto. What's wrong, she getting wedding jitters or something? Joked Anasu, as he knew that Shion was engaged to marry Naruto in a 3 months' time. Hardly, she had a vision about me. At this Anasu immediately stopped joking and became serious. Shion's predictions were not something to joke about. What did she see? Flashback several hours again. As Naruto sat in his office, signing his last document for the day, he suddenly saw his projection ball glowing. When he picked it up, he saw his fiancée Shion standing in front of him, who was red-faced and tears in her eyes as if upset about something. Naruto-kun, thank goodness you're okay, cried the frantic Shion. Huh. Shion, what's wrong? Did something happen? Are you hurt? Asked the slightly confused and worried Naruto. I had a vision of something terrible happening to you and New Kumo, explained Shion, where when Naruto heard this, a serious look appeared on his face. What was the vision, Shion-chan? In the vision I found myself in New Kumo, but it was in ruins. Dark clouds covered the sky, most of the village was destroyed, fires were burning all around, and most of the buildings were ruined. There were dead bodies of people all over the ground and I could hear the sounds of explosions and people yelling and screaming, as if a massive battle was happening in the village. When I closed my eyes hoping to wake up, I suddenly found myself in a hospital room, where I saw you screaming in agony as if you were in horrible pain, as if you had been injured or something. I saw Unohana-san and other medics frantically trying to help you and keep you from falling off the bed. It was then at that moment that I saw a dark cloaked figure suddenly appearing in the room. And what happened then? Asked Naruto urgently. I don't know, I woke up at that point, replied Shion. After hearing this Naruto remained silent. What do you plan to do Naruto-kun? Asked Shion. I don't really know, Shion-chan, but for now, I want you to forget about that vision and get some rest. You'll need it to start your journey here for the Alliance gathering, replied Naruto. But how can I forget something so horrible like that? Shion roared with disbelief. Look, Shion-chan, I know it'll be hard, but please try for my sake. This isn't the first time you saw my death, but like before I beat it. I'll take extra precaution for the gathering here and I will talk it over with Zhuge Sensei and the others later on and plan what to do from there, okay? Responded Naruto. Shion just sighed and nodded, okay, I'll try, but please Naruto-kun be safe, for my sake and the others. Yay, I will. I know you want to use me to make lots of little high priestesses with you, joked Naruto, which caused the young woman to turn even redder and smile a little. Pervert. Giggled Shion. Naruto just smirked in response. Soon enough she faded away. End flashback. Anasu frowned deeply. Have you told Zhuge Sensei and the others about it yet? No, not yet. You're the first to hear about it. I plan to tell only you, Mitsuhide Sensei, Sayuri Sensei, Zhuge Sensei and Masato, head of the CIND division, explained Naruto. But what about the girls? Surely they'll want to know about what Shion saw. No, if I tell them, the girls will just worry themselves sick. For now I'll keep them in the dark. You do know that once they find out about what Shion saw and how you purposely keep them in the dark about it, they will kill you themselves. True, maybe I should just hope that the prediction comes true. The death she saw for me sounds a hell of a lot more pleasant to what the girls would do to me, replied Naruto with a smirk. Oh, if only the world could see this now. The infamous Uzumaki Naruto, strongest Kage in the shinobi world, cowering at the idea of facing his angry wives. Laughed Anasu. Ha, like you're any better than me. You're just as scared of your wives as I am of mine. Or have you forgotten what happened 6 months ago with Kyuki, Sire and Saiko? When you used your ice powers to freeze the hot spring, when they were still in it. Anasu shuddered slightly. By the time his wives were done with him, he was in a sorry state. It wasn't my fault. They mentioned that the hot spring was a bit too hot. I was just trying to cool it down for them a bit. I didn't mean to freeze them, whined Anasu, causing Naruto to laugh. The laughing soon stopped though, when Anasu became serious again. Listen Naruto, after hearing about Shion's prediction, maybe you should rethink about your idea in letting the groups from Iwa and Konoha. Since both places have more than enough people with grudges against you for one reason or another and they may be the ones behind what Shion saw. No, everything will stay according to plan and if we refuse them entry now right before the gathering. It could cause more trouble than it would solve, not to mention it could destroy any chance of the ceasefire with Iwa and I would much rather avoid another war. Besides I don't believe Konoha or Iwa are the ones behind Shion's predictions, since for one thing Iwa doesn't have the strength by itself to destroy us. They would need allies and from what our intelligence tells me, none of the remaining minor shinobi villages that aren't with us, are willing to fight us, especially at what happened in the recent war. As for Konoha, they're even less likely to hit us, since at the current level, they've gone from the strongest of the 5 great shinobi powers to the weakest and wouldn't have the resources to hit us. Tsunade also knows that Konoha needs our protection and support to survive. Not to mention I don't believe Tsunade would ever try to attack us or more specifically me. Regardless of our falling out, I still trust her. So does that mean you've forgiven her for not telling you about your family? I never hated Tsunade, I was just angry at her, even though she probably did it, in the belief that she was protecting me. Well even so, I still don't really like that we're bringing him here, along with the Iwa group. Too many things could go wrong. Don't worry Anasu. I already plan to double security. An ant won't be able to enter this village without me knowing, Naruto assured. I also plan to have Masato get in touch with his intelligence network along with all his informants and other agents and have them report any possible threats no matter how minor. Fair enough. Now there is something else that I need to tell you as well. It's a sensitive subject, Naruto said, gaining his friend's attention. What is it? As you know, for security reasons, I've the representative groups for Konoha, Kiri, Suna, their host nations, as well as the representatives of Umi no Kuni, Sea Country, Tsuki, no Kuni, Moon Country, all gather together at Nami no Kuni, Wave Country. There they'll meet the Zenio Ruo too, and be escorted by our fleet to one of our naval ports and then be brought here. I get why we don't want them to travel by land, for fear of assassination attempts by rival groups, who want to disrupt the Heavenly Alliance. But still I don't see why we can't transport them here by airships, as it would probably be a lot quicker. That's true, but it isn't as secure, as they would still vulnerable to attack, like from the Akatsuki. They could kidnap the representatives in the hope of using them as bargaining chips or kill them to disrupt the Heavenly Alliance, stated the young Raikage. The best way we can secure their safety is by sea, which we now have control of, with Godai Mizukage and the former water daimyo dead. So what exactly do you want me do? I want you to go and meet the representatives on the Zenio Ruo. Why? Here, look at this, it's a list of the representatives of who will be coming here for the gathering, said Naruto as he handed Anasu a sheet of paper. As Anasu looked over the names, he recognized several of them. The first two were Tanusa and Inari, who would be representing Nami no Kuni along with official from the Wave Daimyo's royal court. Another set of names he recognized were the Godime Kazekage Gaara, his brother Kankuro, his sister Temari and his former sensei Baki. With them as well, were also several officials from the royal court of the Wind Daimyo. The next set of names that Anasu saw caught him by surprise, as not only was the new Rokudai Mizukage Terumime coming, but also the newly instated Water Daimyo along with the names of the fifth new generation of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu, 7 swordsmen of the mist. Also among the group and acting as the Water Daimyo's guards were Yushugi Kenshin and his bodyguard Kasuga 3. So the Water Daimyo himself is coming, stated Anasu in mild surprise. Yay, this proves that he really wants this new alliance with us to work. I'm also guessing that the reason why the Mizukage is bringing in all the new members of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu. It's not only to protect the Water Daimyo, but also in the hope of making a good impression with us. That's my guess. Now look at the group that's coming from Konoha, added Naruto. When Anasu looked at the names he was of course astounded. Not only was the Hokage Tsunade coming, Jiraiya, Hitaki Kakashi, all of Naruto's old friends from the Konoha 12, Sarutobi Konohamaru and his team, Yumi no Iruka, his wife Anko and the daughter Hiko, Naruto's old team, the elders and former clan head Hyuga Hiashi. You can see why I am asking you to escort them. I want someone there that I can trust to make sure that certain people in that group can be controlled and to make sure that things don't get out of hand. If I send a large contingent of ninja to escort them, it might give the other representatives the wrong impression, but if I send you along with your wives with the regular crew and ninja on the ships, then I can assure their safety, and not seem threatening at the same time. Okay, I get that, but still, why on earth is Konoha sending so many of their best ninja, the elders, your old academy teacher and his family? I think Tsunade is playing the same kind of game that the Rokudai Mizukage is playing. Bringing the best to try and show us that Konoha still has capable ninja and can be an asset to us. She's also hoping that if she brings some of my old friends from Konoha, it might put me in a better mood during the negotiations. Sounds pretty desperate to me. They are. But the elders, Hyuga Hiashi, Jiraiya and your old team and the Yamanaka girl. It's not like they are among your top favorite people in the world. Hell, their presence alone could have the opposite effect that they're hoping for. My guess is that Jiraiya, Ino, Hitaki, Hiashi and Haruno somehow convinced Tsunade to let them come in the hope reconciling with me, so that they can remove the guilt from themselves. Will you ever forgive them? I don't hate them if that's what you're saying, simply don't like them. But as forgiving them, well Ino I might, since we were never that close. Hiashi, well quite frankly I pity him. From what I heard, anything I could do to the man, has already been done to him by Hinata. He's been shamed, disgraced and beaten down in front of the whole village. He's nothing more than a broken man now. As for Hitaki, Haruno and the Toad, no I can't forgive them, not after what they did, responded Naruto, with slight anger at the last part. Fair enough, but what about the Uchiha and the elders? Homara, I'm not sure. I've heard the man is starting to have second thoughts on some of the things he's done and is actually siding against Danzo and Koharu on many decisions. But regardless of why he's going, Danzo and Koharu are going because they've been greatly displeased with many of Tsunade's decisions, especially with recent events, so they're going to make sure that Tsunade doesn't give away too much in the negotiations. As for Sasuke, ever since the little incident with him trying to kill me twice, Danzo has been making sure he has Sasuke within eyesight of him or his people at all times. Sounds like he doesn't trust the Uchiha anymore. Danzo doesn't trust anyone, period, Naruto answered. But what puzzles me is what makes Danzo believe he can control Sasuke and get him to make Konoha the way he wants it to be. The most Sasuke would do as Hokage is use Konoha's resources to help him hunt down and kill Itachi, and Sasuke isn't the type that can be brainwashed like the rest of Danzo goons. For as much as a team Sasuke is, he's still one of the most strong-willed and determined people I have ever known, and wouldn't allow himself to be controlled by anyone. Do you know? I don't know, but whatever it is, he must be certain of it, since it's highly likely that Sasuke will one day go rogue, especially if it's to get what he wants, answered Naruto. For the next hour or so, Naruto and Anasu continued to talk about what to do for the alliance gathering and what else they had left to prepare. Eventually they called it a night, but before he left, Anasu asked Naruto if there were any orders regarding to Sasuke when he met him. Naruto just smiled and gave him the order. Anasu grinned and said, with pleasure. Once Anasu left the room, Naruto slightly chuckled to himself and thought, things will certainly become more interesting in the coming weeks. Last time on Raikage. For the next hour or so, Naruto and Anasu continued to talk about what to do for the alliance gathering and what else they had left to prepare. Eventually though they decided to call it a night, but before he left, Anasu asked Naruto if there were any orders regarding to Sasuke when he met him. At this, Naruto just smiled and gave him order, where after hearing what Naruto wanted him to do, Anasu just smiled and said, with pleasure, before leaving the room. Once Anasu left the room, Naruto slightly chuckled to himself and thought, things will certainly become more interesting in the coming weeks. The Great Naruto Bridge, 1 week later. 2 months after the Battle of Konoha, the representatives of Konoha arrived at the Great Naruto Bridge. The group itself was larger than what most people would expect a diplomatic group to be, where it was made up of the members of the former Konoha 12, along with the Godime Hokage Tsunade, her former teammate Jiraiya and her advisors Danzo, Homura and Koharu. Also with them were Yumi no Iruka and his 3-month pregnant wife Anko and their now 6-year-old daughter Hiko. As well as former team leader of Team 7, Hatake Kakashi, the former head of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hiashi, and a member of Danzo's Root Division. The group was also accompanied by the representative of the Fire Daimyo, who wished to form good relationship with his neighboring nation and the growing superpower. The representative was none other than the famed samurai general Takeda Shingen, cousin of the Fire Daimyo and leader of Hai no Kuni's Fire Country most powerful and influential samurai clan, the Takeda clan. Shingen was a revered general and samurai, who was known and respected by all shinobi and non-shinobi and was known as Tora Hai no Kuni, the Tiger of Fire Country. But not only was he a master tactician and a brilliant leader of men in battle, but was also a capable diplomat, who knew the value of forging good relations with one's neighbors and knew when to compromise. Shingen was a massive man, who had large muscular build and stood 6'6", well over everyone else in the group including Jiraiya, who was 6'2". He wore crimson-red armor and headdress adorned with large bull-like horns on the top and carried a massive battle axe on his back, much like Choji. 1. As the group made their way across the Great Naruto Bridge, they were met by a squad of new Kumo shinobi, who were part of the division that was stationed at Nami no Kuni. Once all the members of the group had been searched, and were made to hand over their weapons. They were escorted to the village, where they met Inari and several of his samurai. Greetings Hokage-sama, welcome to Nami no Kuni, my name is Inari and I am in charge of security here, spoke the young man. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Inari Teiko, greeted the blonde Hokage with a kind smile, where she then held out her hand in friendship, which the young samurai took. After which Tsunade then introduced Inari to the rest of her group, the ones he did not know. After introductions were all done, Inari then led him to the recently built fort on the outskirts of the village, which was where the other representatives were waiting. As they walked to the opposite end of the village, Tsunade decided to pose a question. I was told that you and Naruto were rather close, when he first arrived here in Nami no Kuni, with the rest of his team. Yes, Naruto ni was the one who inspired me to fight and protect what I hold dear and help the rest of my village rediscover our courage, answered Inari, causing Tsunade to smile. Since Naruto had a knack for bring out the best of most people, when he was around them long enough. So, how long have you know the truth about Naruto being the Raikage? Kakashi asked suddenly, as he walked next to Tsunade and Inari. Ni-sama revealed himself to us, right after the invasion, replied Inari in a neutral tone. Flashback 2.5 months, Nami no Kuni invasion. After walking up to the Raikage, both Inari and Tazuna fell to their knees and bowed their heads in gratitude to the leader of New Kumo. Thank you, Raikage Denka. Our country is forever in your debt. We were starting to believe that you would not arrive in time, or you did not accept our petition to join the Heavenly Alliance and would not come to our aid, said Tazuna, and was followed by his grandson. As my grandfather said, our people are forever in your debt. If there is anything we can ever do for you, please do not hesitate to ask us. For our country would surely have fallen had you and your shinobi not arrived when you did. Seeing the two men on their knees, the Raikage lowered himself down to them and looked directly into their eyes. Well, you could always build and name another bridge after me, said the Raikage in a low whisper and a wink, causing both Inari and Tazuna's eyes to widen in surprise and go pale white, realizing who the Raikage was. Naru, said Inari, but before he could finish, he heard Naruto go, "SSSS shush," telling him to stop. Listen, both of you, I know you're both surprised by this, but for now pretend that nothing has changed, as I don't want Hataki or the others to know the truth about me yet. I promise that I explain everything later tonight, when we're alone, okay? Whispered the masked Raikage, where both Inari and Tazuna nodded and got back onto their feet. End flashback. After a few minutes, Tsunade and the rest of the group arrived at the wooden fort, which was being guarded by several new Kumo shinobi. After making sure that everyone was cleared, the group were escorted to the main building in the certain of the fort, where they found the representatives of most of the other nations and villages that were preparing to join or ally themselves with the Heavenly Alliance. Hokage-sama, allow me to introduce to the other representatives of the other nations that will be traveling with you to New Kumo for the Alliance gathering, said Inari as he introduced the Konoha group to the representatives. The first group was the representatives of Nadeshiko no Sato Pink Flower Village, which was represented by its leader Shizuka, who strangely enough had a connection with Jiraiya, as he knew her mother from long ago. The village itself had been a long-term ally of the Heavenly Alliance and was now preparing to become a full member. The second group was from Benasu to Crimson Sandbank Island, who until recently had been a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance, just like Konoha was about to become, but was now becoming a full member of the Heavenly Alliance. The third group was the Suna group, which was made up of Gaara, his wife Matsuri and his siblings, along with their former sensei Baki and an official from the royal court of Kase no Kuni, Wind Country. The fourth and fifth groups were made of officials who represented Enkai no Kuni, Ocean Country, Umi no Kuni, Sea Country, who were all preparing to join the Heavenly Alliance as official members. The sixth group was from Suki no Kuni, Moon Country, and its shinobi village, Getsugaku no Sato, village hidden under the moon, which was founded thanks to the help of New Kumo and was represented by the village leader, a middle-aged man named Sado. After introducing Tsunade and the others to most of the other representatives, who were going with them to New Kumo, Inari then introduced them to the last two groups, which was the most surprising to the Konoha group. The seventh group was made up of none other than the new daimyo of Mizu no Kuni, Water Country, Yushugi Kenshin, and his bodyguard Kasuga and one other individual. The new water daimyo was of course not what the Konoha group expected. He was a tall and rather skinny middle-aged man and clearly looked unsure of himself. Something that was unusually for a daimyo, and it was obvious that he was very nervous about being surrounded by so many shinobi. But it was not surprising given how the pervious water daimyo had used Kiri and its shinobi, as his secret police, to eliminate anyone who would stand up to him or threaten his position as daimyo. At the same time, Shingen went over to Kenshin and greeted his fellow samurai general, who he had found of several different occasions in the last Great War, during which both Shingen and Kenshin formed a mutual respect for one another's skill as fighters and tacticians, where they developed a sort of rivalry. The final member of the group was of course the most surprising to Tsunade and Jiraiya, who recognized him. The man in question was a relative tall young-looking man, about 6'2", with muscular man and long black hair that was gathered in a ponytail and parted so to frame his face. He wore a sky-blue karategi, too, with sandals, and wore a large white cloak over it and carried a medium-sized katana on left hip. "Hiko, is that you?" asked a surprised Jiraiya, who had a look of utter shock on his face. "It has been some time, Jiraiya-san, Tsunade-san, or should I say Hokage-sama," replied the man named Hiko, with a small smile. "I thought you were dead," Jiraiya stated, as he tried to get over his surprise. "That was a belief I wanted everyone to maintain after our last encounter, where I decided to retire from shinobi life. But sadly I forced to come out, due to the civil war in my village, where I could no longer stand by and watch the Godai Mizukage's tyranny," Hiko answered. "Hokage-sama, who is this man?" asked Sakura suddenly, since she was curious as to how her sensei and Jiraiya knew him. This is Takeru Hiko, the first man to ever become a member of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu, 7 shinobi swordsmen of the Hidden Mist without ever training or using one of their special swords. He is also credited with being the greatest swords master to have ever lived in Kirigakure, Hidden Mist, and uses the Tenkan divine sword fighting style, explained the Toad Sage. At hearing this, most of the younger group were surprised, but none were as surprised as Tenten, who had heard of Hiko and couldn't believe she was actually meeting one of the shinobi world's greatest sword masters. You haven't aged a day since then, commented Tsunade suddenly, while at the same time wondering what the man's secret was. Some of us age more gracefully than other Hokage-sama, Hiko replied, with a small smile, which annoyed the female Kage slightly. Excuse me Hokage-sama, but what do you mean by him not aging? Asked Neji. What I mean is that Hiko is almost as old as Jiraiya and me, explained the female Hokage, where the eyes of the younger members of the Konoha group widened in surprise. 353 to be precise, Hiko replied, ignoring the shocked look on most of the Konoha members' faces. No way, cried Ino in disbelief, since at most the man looked like he was in his mid to early 30s. Eventually, after everyone had been introduced, and the excitement of Hiko's real age died down, the Konoha group turned to the 8th and final group, which represented Kiri. Naturally, when Jiraiya saw the new Mizukage Mei, the Toad Sage went into pervert mode, but before he could try anything, Tsunade delivered a sharp elbow to his gut, causing him to keel over slightly in pain, making sure that he didn't embarrass Konoha by trying to hit on the Mizukage. It's a pleasure to finally meet you Hokage-sama, I've wanted to meet you for a very long time, spoke the female Mizukage, with a smile and held out her hand to Tsunade, as a sign of friendship, which the Hokage took. After shaking hands with her fellow female Kage, Mei then introduced the rest of her party to the Konoha group, all of whom were members of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu. Once the introductions were all done, the representatives were joined by Tazuna, who would be going with them to New Kumo, as the representative of Nami no Kuni. He then went on to explain to everyone that they would be traveling by ship to a port in Kaminari no Kuni, Lightning Country, and from there they would travel to New Kumo. After a little while, the 11 individual parties left the fort with an escort of New Kumo shinobi and headed towards the coast at the other end of the island, where they would meet the fleet that would take them to the Kaminari no Kuni. When they arrived at the shore, they found the flagship of New Kumo fleet, the Zenio Ruo, waiting for them, along with 2 other fortress ships, acting as escorts. So those are the Alliance fortress ships that we've heard about, commented Tsunade, when she saw the 3 massive ships and could not help but be impressed by them. That they are Hokage-sama, spoke an unknown male voice out of nowhere. When the groups heard this, they immediately started to look around to see who had spoken. After a few seconds of looking, they saw a tall man, about 6'2", with long white hair that went down to his lower shoulder blades and face, where he had it parted on the left side of his face. He had a slightly narrow yet handsome face with bright blue eyes. He wore a black shirt with a white trench coat over it along with black shinobi pants and steel-tip boots and carried a long katana on his back. A pleasure to see you again Anasu-kun, said Mei with a smile, when she saw the young man. As it is to see you again Mizukage-sama, replied Anasu, with his own smile and a slight bow. Excuse me, but who exactly are you? Asked Hinata, since like everyone she was curious as to the identity of the man in front of them. Oh, yay, sorry about that, I haven't introduced myself to most of you, said the slightly embarrassed Anasu. My name is Seiwa Anasu, I am the Raikage second in command and I am here to escort all of you to New Kumo. At hearing Anasu's full name, the eyes of Konoha members quickly widen in surprise, as they realized that Anasu was the one who Naruto said was almost as strong as him. So you're the one who led the invasion of Mizu no Kunai and Kiri, the infamous Kurosui no Kami, god of ice and water, spoke Jiraiya, as he remembered the reports he heard about the man in front of him. That would be correct, Anasu answered rather coolly, as he did not have a great deal of respect for the famed Toad Sage of Konoha, given how he neglected his duties to his friend, as his godfather. Now before we proceed any further, I like to introduce you to my wives, Kako, Saya, Seiko, Isaribi, Sun Lee and my fiancés Fuma Sasam and Hikato. At hearing this, nearly everyone thought the exact same thing, he has 5 wives and 2 fiancés. Damn, and here I thought Naruto was a lucky bastard, thought Jiraiya. Man, first Naruto now this guy, what the hell those two have that I don't? Thought Kiba with a twig of jealousy as he looked at Anasu wises and fiancés. 4. Once the introductions were all done, Anasu then turned to Sasuke, who had been staring intently at the white-haired man ever since he first appeared. As Sasuke stared at the man, he noticed that Anasu did not give out the same kind of authoritative presence that Naruto could, which could make most around him submissive. But even though he did not have the same kind of presence, he did possess the same powerful aura that Naruto had, which spoke of immense power. The two of them continued to stare off at one another for a minute or two, as if they were sizing each other up. Eventually Sasuke decided to speak. You look like you've something to say to me. Yay, I have 2 words for you, get lost. What? You heard me, go back to Konoha, you're not welcome in New Kumo. You've no right to make demands of us, as Uchiha Sasuke is part of my personal detail and I am a member of the Konoha representative team, stated Danzo as he stepped between Anasu and Sasuke and stared at Anasu. Well, if you want these talks to go anywhere, you have to do what I say, Anasu answered as he stared at the elderly man, who did not back down. Is that a threat? Danzo asked. No, it's a fact. Now as I said, if you want these talks with the alliance to happen, you'll send him back home. Since we're well aware that Uchiha Sasuke attempted to assassinate our Raikage without provocation and we will not give him another chance to do so again. After hearing this, Tsunade smiled, since she had never wanted to have Sasuke with them to begin with, for fear of him lashing out at Naruto. But unfortunately, since Sasuke was still a member of Root, she had limited control of him, and ever since the incident with Naruto, Danzo has not allowed Sasuke to leave his side. HMPH, sounds like the dope is scared of me, mocked Sasuke, which earned him the glares of many of the new Kumo shinobi that accompanied the representatives. As well as Anasu's fiancés and wives, who gripped their weapons tightly in anger. Seeing how the situation was turning, Anasu acted quickly and held up his hand, telling his people to calm down. Once they did, the young man then turned back to Sasuke and glared coldly at the young Uchiha, who didn't even flinch at the cold glare. I suggest that you hold your tongue when you speak of the Raikage in front of us, Uchiha, said Anasu as he spat out Sasuke's surname. We do not take kindly to people who insults our leader, especially from the likes of you. And what's that supposed to mean? Asked Sasuke with a cool glare. To put it simply, Uchiha, your reputation precedes you, Anasu answered. Besides, you should be grateful that you're being forbidden in entering our village, since there are many shinobi in our village who would love to get a piece of you. TSK, like I care about those losers, they can hate me all they want, scoffed Sasuke, not the least bit worried that there were those in New Kumo that wanted him dead. Well, aren't we the confident one, commented Anasu. Okay then, if you're so sure of your skill, how about I make you a deal? What sort of deal? You go one-on-one with me right now, explained Anasu. If you win, you can proceed with the rest of us to New Kumo. But if I win, you go back to Konoha without incident. When Sasuke heard this, he raised his eyebrow with interest, as Anasu offer made for an interesting opportunity, since after the invasion and seeing Naruto's battle with Orochimaru, his allies and the revived Hokages, Sasuke had put himself under intensive training and pushed himself further than he had before, in the hopes of reaching Naruto's level and defeating him. Hence, if he fought and defeated Anasu, he knew he'd be one step closer to defeating not only Naruto, but also his brother Itachi. Sasuke was, of course, not the only one who thought this would be an interesting opportunity. As Danzo believed it would be a perfect chance to see what the famed Kurosui no Kami was capable of with his own eyes. Fine, you got a deal. Good, Anasu answered, as he smirked in victory at how Sasuke had taken his bait, where he could now follow Naruto's orders towards dealing with Sasuke, which were to kick his ass. Now, just to make things more fair, we'll follow the same rules that you and Naruto had at the Valley of the End. All you have to do to win is scratch this headband, stated Anasu, as he untied his Kumo headband from his arm and tied it to his head. Sasuke of course glared at this, as he could read the underlying insult from Anasu's remark. I'll do more than just scratch your headband, replied Sasuke as he glared at Anasu, who just smirked again. Quickly the new Kumo escorts and the other nation representatives moved away from the beach and to the tree line, where they would watch the match. Once everyone had moved to a safe enough distance, Sasuke drew out his new Chokuto, 5, which had been returned to him, along with the rest of his gear after he agreed to Anasu's challenge. At the same time, Anasu grabbed the handle of the sword on his back and drew it. The sword was quite long, where its blade was about 1.4 meters long and had a usual guard shaped like a 4-pointed star. As soon as Anasu drew the katana, a massive and powerful pulse of chakra was felt by everyone in the surrounding area, which was familiar to most people. This power, it's just like when Ni-san drew his sword, commented Konohamaru. He's right, replied Kakashi. Could that katana be another one of the 3 celestial swords? Asked Tsunade. It is, answered Sun Li, who was standing nearby. Which one is it? Jiraiya asked, although he already had a clue, given what clan Anasu was from. Hyolinmaru, replied Sasam, confirming Jiraiya's suspicions. Naturally, nearly everyone was surprised to hear that Anasu possessed one of the 3 celestial swords, like Naruto. But as surprised as everyone was, there were those who became very concerned by this revelation. These people were none other than Danzo and Koharu, since it was troubling enough to them that Naruto had one. But now after learning that Anasu had one as well, their concerns of New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance only grew more. Since by having 2 out of the 3 celestial swords in their possess, New Kumo had 2 weapons capable of turning the balance of power even more into their favor. Making them that more powerful than they already were, as well as making it that much harder for anyone to stand up to them, let alone defeat them. It also made Danzo and Koharu wonder what other secrets New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance have and how powerful were they really. Tenten, do you know anything about this sword? Neji asked, as he turned to his former female teammate, who knew a bit about the 3 celestial swords. Not much, but according to legend, Hyolinmaru is incredibly powerful, like the sword of Tengu, and is said to have the power over water and ice, which is why it's sometimes called the sword of the ocean. It's said that it can create a tidal wave large enough to wash away a small nation or freeze an entire castle and turn it into a giant block of ice. Some say that it even has the power to affect the weather, like the sword of Tengu. If that's true, and if what we've heard about Anasu Dono being the last remaining Hyoten holder, then it would make for an extremely powerful and beneficial weapon for someone like him to have, stated Neji. But where could he have gotten it? Sakura asked openly, which was what most people were wondering. I believe I can answer that, spoke the Rokudai Mizukage suddenly, gaining everyone's attention. What do you mean, Mizukage-sama? Asked Shino, as he and everyone else turned to face the female Kage. As all of you know, during the Great Shinobi Clan Wars and before the rise of the Shinobi villages, Shinobi clans in many nations fought each other constantly over missions or clan feuds. During that time, the Seiwa clan rose up to become the strongest Shinobi clan in Mizu no Kuni, which was thanks not only to their powerful Hyoten bloodline, but also because of their clan head, who was said to wield a powerful weapon, which enhanced his ice powers to unimaginable levels. Although never confirmed, many believed he wielded one of the 3 celestial swords, or to be more precise, Hyolinmaru. When Kiri was eventually formed, many in my village, including the Shodaime, Nadaime and Sandai Mizukages, investigated the Seiwa clan, in the hope of discovering if the clan really did possess Hyolinmaru. Their investigations of course turned up nothing, but regardless, there were many in my village that still believed that the Seiwa possessed it, and it was because of this belief that the Seiwa clan were the first bloodline clan to be attacked. Since the Yondaime Mizukage feared that one of the Seiwa members would use it against him in his war against bloodline holders. But if the Seiwa clan really did have Hyolinmaru, why didn't they use it to defend themselves? Ino asked. More than likely, for the same reason why no one could use the sword of Tengu before the Nadaime Raikage and Naruto Dono. The sword did not accept anyone else who tried to use it, given how it is sentient and only accepts certain people, stated Neji. After a few minutes, the discussion about Hyolinmaru died down and everyone turned their attention back to Sasuke and Anasu, who were about to start their battle. Sasuke made the first move, where in a feat of incredible speed, he disappeared within a blink of an eye and reappeared right above Anasu, and swung his Chokuto in a downward slash in an attempt to cut Anasu in 2. Seeing this, Anasu quickly jumped backwards to avoid the slash, where the only thing Sasuke hit was the ground, causing a large cloud of sand from the bleach to rise up. Not to be deterred, Sasuke chased after Anasu and attempted a horizontal slash across Anasu's chest, which Anasu skillfully avoided. This went on for the next few minutes, where Sasuke continued with a series of relentless attacks on Anasu. But each time Anasu would skillfully evade the Uchiha's sword slashes and stabs. Eventually Sasuke's and Anasu's swords clashed with one another, where Anasu was forced to block a powerful downward strike from Sasuke. He then maneuvered his sword to push Sasuke back and then went on the offensive, where he attempted to stab Sasuke with a forward thrust. Sasuke of course avoided the stab by jumping backward, where he then threw several shuriken at Anasu, who skillfully deflected the projectiles with his sword as he charged at Sasuke and attempted to cut the raven-haired boy with a downward slash. Like the last attack, Sasuke jumped back to avoid it, but when Anasu's katana hit the ground, the young white-haired man lifted his sword up, causing the sand to rise up and into Sasuke's eyes, temporarily blinding him. This created an opening, which Anasu exploited by thrusting his sword forward at the young root captain. Acting on his instincts, Sasuke quickly jumped up into the air and avoided the stab, where he then swung his right leg at the side of Anasu's head, who avoided the kick by disappearing and reappearing several meters opposite Sasuke. With the observers, it seems that Dickless has improved since the Battle of Konoha, commented Sai. Indeed, replied Shino, judging by how battle has gone so far, both of them are about even. I wouldn't go that far just yet, since Naruto openly stated that Anasu's power rivals his own, so obviously he hasn't even gotten started yet, stated Tsunade. You got that right, since Anasu-kun is only playing around, said Sun Lee, gaining everyone's attention, since he didn't become the Raikage's tag team partner simply because of his good looks. Tag team partner, Sakura repeated, not fully understanding it. It's an old tradition that goes back to when Kumo was founded, explained Jiraiya. You see, in Kumo, the Raikage has always had a tag team partner, who not only brings out the Raikage's full power, but defends him or her as well. That's correct, replied Kako. Together Anasu-kun and Naruto are an unbeatable team, where together they're known in New Kumo as the Soshin no Arashi, twin gods of storm. None of the representatives were too surprised when they heard this, since they were all familiar in some way of Naruto abilities and power. The same also went for Anasu, since rumors had also begun to spread of his abilities and how his power rivaled Naruto's. Hence it wouldn't be a surprise that together, the two would be a powerful team. With Sasuke and Anasu. Not bad, evidently the rumors of your skill are true, commented Anasu as he stared at Sasuke. Naruto told me you were good and I can see that he was right, it's actually a shame that you're such a piece of work. You would have made a powerful ally if you haven't become so full in hate and anger. Are you just going to keep yapping like the dope or are you going to fight? Asked Sasuke, not caring what Anasu had to say. As the two faced off again, Anasu began to see a dark aura form around Sasuke, filled with murderous intent. When he looked into the Uchiha's eyes, he could see the same cold darkness in his eyes, indicating that Sasuke was intending on killing him, if not maim him. This guy may be more off the edge than we thought, as he actually trying to kill me, thought Anasu as he stared at Sasuke with a blank look. Die! Cried Sasuke as he charged forward with his Chokuto, while Anasu did the same. When the two clashed, they began to exchange blows with each other's swords. This continued for the next few minutes, until eventually they broke apart. During the fight, Anasu proved that he was much faster than Sasuke and used his superior speed to keep Sasuke on the defensive for most of the time. Sasuke although was able to keep Anasu at bay, by activating his Sharingan and using it to track Anasu's movements. Soon after breaking apart, Anasu recommenced the fight by using his superior speed to disappear and reappear on Sasuke's left and attacked from the side with a high-speed slash. Acting quickly, Sasuke used his Chidori Nagashi, 1000 Birds Current, to stop the attack, where he created a Chidori in his left free hand without using any hand seals and released it in every direction. This created an electrical discharge that went in every direction and hit Anasu, stopping him in his tracks. Seeing his opponent momentarily distracted by the lightning running through his body, Sasuke quickly spun around and slashed at Anasu with his sword, cutting the young man in two. But before Sasuke could take pleasure in his victory, Anasu turned into a wooden long, revealing that he had used a Kawarimi no Jutsu body replacement technique to replace himself. As soon as Sasuke realized what had happened, Anasu appeared behind Sasuke and attempted to stab the root captain from behind. Seeing Anasu appear behind him, Sasuke immediately spun his sword backward and held it in a reverse grip and then stabbed his sword backwards and into Anasu's stomach. Who could not see it until it was too late thanks to Sasuke's black cloak blocking his view. 6. But as soon as Sasuke stabbed the white-haired new Kumo nin, Anasu turned white and the shattered in large pieces of ice, revealing that the Anasu Sasuke stabbed was a Hyoten, Kuri Bunshin ice release, ice clone, A. Seeing that the Anasu he stabbed was a clone, Sasuke immediately started to search for Anasu, who appeared out of the water on Sasuke's right side and attempted to slash at Sasuke again. Acting quickly, the young Uchiha jumped backwards to avoid the sword slash, but was unable to avoid it fully, where his right sleeve was cut. But as soon as he landed back on the beach, he was put on the defensive by Anasu, who delivered a powerful downward slash at Sasuke, who barely blocked it with his sword in time. Anasu of course did not let up the pressure, as he continued to attack Sasuke with powerful slashes and strike, that he barely blocked each time. Knowing he needed a distraction, Sasuke ripped off his torn sleeve and threw it in front of Anasu's face, so to block his line of sight for a second, which it did, where he then pushed it out of the way with his sword. But as soon as he did, Sasuke then went of the offensive, where he started attacking Anasu with a relentless series of slashes and strikes with his sword, leaving Anasu little opportunities to counterattack. As Anasu continued to be forced back, he activated a small seal at the bottom of his sword hilt, which released a crescent-shaped blade attached to its hilt by a long metal chain. Once the crescent-shaped blade and chain was released, Anasu threw the chain and wrapped it around Sasuke's chokuto and pulled him back, causing Sasuke to lose his balance. After which Anasu swung him around and into one of the nearby trees. But before he could hit the tree, Sasuke flipped himself around in midair, so that he would hit the tree feet first and used his chakra so that he could stay on the tree. He also then freed his chokuto from the chain that was wrapped around it, which retracted back into the Anasu's sword. Impressive, you're a lot better in Kenjutsu than I originally thought. I'm guessing you've been training intensely these past few months, commented Anasu, as he stared at Sasuke, who used the high shunshin fire body flicker to disappear in a whirl of fire and reappear at the other end of the beach opposite Anasu. But still, I believe it's time to get serious, since we can't play around all day, as I have a schedule to keep and out of respect for your skill as a shinobi. I'll give you this one chance to concede, there'll be no shame in giving up, but if you refuse, be warned I will not hold back on you. You can stop acting so tough, as you're not only one who has been holding back and I've no intention of quitting, replied Sasuke. Very well then, but remember Uchiha, you're the one who forced me to do this. I gave you the chance to walk away, replied Anasu, with serious tone and look. After which his eyes started to glow bright white and both he and his sword began to release a massive amount of chakra, which could be clearly seen by all the observers. Hey, looks like this battle is about to end, commented Seiko. What do you mean? Is he going to use Hyolinmaru true power? Tenten asked. Yes he is, and when Anasu-kun unleashes Hyolinmaru true power, he becomes every bit as dangerous as the Raikage, replied Kako. You're also in for a special treat, since you're about to see with your own eyes how Anasu-kun earned the moniker Kumo no Ashuyu, Ice Dragon of Kumo, added Sun Lee with a knowing look. With Anasu and Sasuke. Bleach OST Storm Center. As his power started to grow, Anasu suddenly raised his sword up high and shouted out, "Reign over the frosted heavens, Hyolinmaru." After which a massive roar of some massive beast could be heard coming from the sword by everyone in the surrounding area, which forced many people cover their ears from the loudness of it. Soon after, the sky began to darken as storm clouds suddenly appeared, while the sea became rougher from the high winds that were blowing. What's going on? How is he causing this? Thought Sasuke, as he saw the effect of Anasu's sword was having on the weather. Is that sword causing all of this? Could it be another one of the three celestial swords, just like the dopes? Suddenly Anasu then jumped up into the air and roared out, "Hyoru, Ice Dragon." Where a massive Chinese dragon, made out of ice with glowing red eyes erupted from the sword and circled around Anasu. What the hell? Cried Sasuke in disbelief, when he saw the giant ice dragon appear out of Anasu's sword and charged straight for him. Acting quickly, Sasuke jumped into the air to avoid the ice dragon, where it crashed onto the beach and exploded into a massive wave of water and ice. The sheer mass and velocity of the attack was so great that it encompassed much of the area that was behind Sasuke, including the coastal water, which was frozen solid up to several yards. Even the trees that were to Sasuke's right, which were opposite the sea, were unable to remain unaffected by the attack, as many of them were blown off the roots and frozen solid. Shit. There was too much water and it was coming in too fast for me to avoid completely, thought Sasuke angrily, as he landed next to another tree that was facing Anasu when he landed. He then glared coldly at the male ice user, while at the same time he glanced down at his right leg, which was now frozen in ice. Since he was unable to avoid the attack completely and some of the water hit his right leg and froze almost instantly. Knowing that he would be unable to move fully with his leg like this, Sasuke charged his sword with lightning and struck the ice with it. But much to his surprise and confusion, the ice did not shatter. That won't work, I'm afraid, commented Anasu, when he saw Sasuke trying to free his leg. That ice is no ordinary ice, it is specially created by Hyolinmaru itself, where it is as strong as steel and is extremely resistant to most Kaiten ninjutsu. Meaning it'll take much more than a simple tab from your sword there to break it and the ice won't melt for 3 days. But still, that won't matter much, since I'm ending this match now, stated Anasu, before he swung his sword again and roared out, Hyoru, creating another massive ice dragon from his sword. Knowing he couldn't avoid the attack this time, with his leg like this, Sasuke knew his best chance was to block the technique, where did several hand seal and brought his 2 front fingers to his mouth. He then inhaled deeply and thought, Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. Where he then exhaled a massive ball of fire. Sadly though, when the fireball collided with the ice dragon, Anasu's dragon easily overpowered the fire attack and turned it into a ball of ice, where it shattered into pieces. After which the ice dragon continued to charge towards Sasuke, who could do little other than watch in horror as the ice dragon came at him and hit him. When the attack hit Sasuke, the young Uchiha blasted back through several trees, which were frozen solid by the attack. By the time the attack ended, a large portion of the area behind Sasuke was now a frozen wasteland, with the ground now covered entirely by ice. The most of the trees that were behind him were now frozen, where the ones that fell from the force of the attack, littered the area stuck in odd-looking positions. While those that were able to stay rooted, looked like glass ornaments. After the attack, Sasuke found that he was unable to move, where with the exception of his head, his entire body was covered in ice. End Bleach OST Storm Center. Seeing his situation, Sasuke tried to summon his chakra to free himself from the ice, but quickly found that he could not. I wouldn't bother trying to summon your chakra if I were you, Uchiha, said Anasu, as he appeared over Sasuke. This ice, it somehow seals away my chakra, doesn't it? Said Sasuke as his body started to go numb with the cold of the ice. Correct, you catch on quick, the ice generated by Hyolinmaru is not only strong, but also suppresses the chakra in a person, making it near impossible to break out of, answered Anasu. Soon enough, Sasuke and Anasu were joined by the representatives and their new Kumo escort, all of whom minus the new Kumo members, were shocked by the level of power that Anasu's sword had. Incredible, Tsunade remarked as she looked around the now ice-covered area that was created by Anasu's attack. Damn, he took down Sasuke without breaking a sweat, said Kiba, even though he didn't like the Uchiha. Kiba knew that Sasuke was no pushover and that he was stronger than him. Like I said earlier, you haven't seen anything yet, when it concerns Anasu-kun, and excuse an corny phrase, but what all of you've seen right now is only the tip of the iceberg, stated Sun Li. He's certainly an impressive shinobi, he has the swiftness of the wind, the coolness of a mountaintop and the fieriness of the raging sea, commented Shingen. Who was beginning to see that it would indeed be wise to ally with the Heavenly Alliance, if they had shinobi like Naruto and Anasu. Now then Sasuke-san, I believe in accordance to our agreement, you'll go back to Konoha without incident, like a good little Uchiha. Sasuke of course growled angrily as this, especially at the last remark. And how do you even expect me to leave like this? Growled Sasuke. Anasu just smirked at this question, before he tapped the ice that covered Sasuke with his sword, causing it to shatter and break. Once the ice around Sasuke was broken, Anasu stabbed his sword into the ice-covered ground, causing cracks to appear on the ice and spread throughout the ice all around and then eventually shatter into pieces and break. When Sasuke and the others saw this, they realized that not only could Hyolinmaru created unique ice, it also had the power to destroy it. Soon after the ice had broken off him, Sasuke slowly stood up. I trust that you know your way back, stated Anasu as sheathed his sword back into his sheath on his back and turned his back to Sasuke and started to walk away. Seeing this of course infuriated Sasuke, as he remembered his fight with Naruto at the Memorial Stone, or more specially his words. Flashback. After being defeated by Naruto, Sasuke looked up at the blonde Raikage, who was standing over him with a cold mocking smirk. Seeing the angry look on Sasuke's face, Naruto's smirk grew. As he looked down at Sasuke, Naruto enjoyed how he brought down his former best friend and rival. I want you to do me a favor for me, Sasuke. I want you to remember this day. I want you to remember how the class dope and loser was able to kick you sorry ass without even breaking a sweat. I want you remember how I could have killed you with ease, but I let you live because you weren't worth killing, said Naruto with a cold smirk, while saying the last part slowly. End flashback. After remembering his past humiliation and how familiar this scene was to the one in Konoha, Sasuke began to leak killing intent. Seeing the angry look on Sasuke's face and feeling his killing intent, Tsunade and the other Konoha members prepared to move in and stop Sasuke from repeating the event at the Memorial Stone. But before any of them could intervene, 6 ice spikes burst out of the ground around Sasuke and pinned him in the middle of them and had the deadly points pressed against all sides of his neck. The next thing he or anyone knew, Anasu was directly in front of Sasuke with his sword once again drawn and pointed right between the Uchiha's eyes, giving him a cold and deadly look. At seeing this, most of the representatives were surprised at Anasu's speed, as within a second Anasu had performed a jutsu that pinned Sasuke, then drew his katana and appeared right in front of the raven-haired captain. It seems that Sun Lee-san was correct. Anasu-sama is indeed stronger than he lets on, or at the very least, faster, thought Neji, since to do all that in the space of only a second was no small feat. Once Sasuke was at Anasu's mercy, a cold chill began to fill the air, making everyone shiver slightly from the cold. At the same time, Anasu began to leak out a potent and powerful killing intent, which made what Sasuke released a moment ago look meek in comparison. Do not test me any more than you already have, Uchiha. Unlike Naruto, I will not let you live, simply because I think you're not worth killing, stated Anasu in an icy tone. Now you've 2 choices: you can return to your village of your own accord, or you can go back feet first. It's entirely up to you, as I don't really care, but either way, you're leaving this land. At this threat, Sasuke just glared at Anasu, not showing an ounce of fear. But before things could go any further, Danzo suddenly intervened, where he stepped forward and looked directly at the young man, who glanced at the old man. That's enough, Sasuke. You've lost and will honor your agreement with Anasu-san. Do not disgrace our village any more than you already have. Upon hearing Danzo's orders, Sasuke relented, reluctantly though. Seeing this, Anasu then sheathed his sword and had his ice spikes recede. Once the tension died down, the temperature began to return to normal. Danzo went over to Sasuke and told him that he was to return to Konoha. He even went so far as ordering his other route operative to accompany Sasuke back to Konoha, so to make sure that the Uchiha return home. At the same time, Anasu called over 4 new Kumo nins and told them to accompany Sasuke and the route agent to the Great Naruto Bridge and make sure they leave the island without incident. Once Sasuke, the route agent and their new Kumo guards left the area, Tsunade went over and apologized for Sasuke's actions, and assured Anasu that she never wanted Sasuke to come in the first place, but could not prevent it since he was part of route. She also assured Anasu that none of the other Konoha representatives would act out of line and would act with the utmost professionalism. Anasu of course accepted Tsunade's apology and said he understood, which relieved the woman. After the excitement died down, Anasu went on to explain that for security reasons the representatives would only be allowed in certain sections of the ship. Also because of these reasons, Hinata, her father Hiashi and cousin Neji would all have to wear chakra-suppressing seals, so to ensure they could not use their dojutsu to spy. Naturally Danzo and Koharu objected to this, but Anasu said that was how things were and unless they agree, none of the Hyuga members could board the ship or journey to New Kumo. Eventually Hinata and the other agreed to the conditions, despite arguments from both Danzo and Koharu, and allowed Anasu to place the seals on their foreheads. He of course assured them that the seals would be removed once they reached New Kumo and allowed Jiraiya to examine them. So to ensure that they did only what they were supposed to and that there were no other affect. After the seals were placed on Hinata and the others, Anasu warned them not to tamper or try to remove them, since they could only be removed by him. Once everything was taken care of, Anasu and all the other representatives went over to the small boats that were waiting for them, which would take them over to the Zenio Ruo, which in turn would take them to Kaminari no Kuni. Unknown location in Ishi no Kuni, Stone Country. Deep in an underground base, the former Shinobi no Konoha's white snake, Orochimaru sat on a large throne-like chair, allowing his right-hand man Kabuto to remove the bandages around his left arm. Once the bandages were removed, Orochimaru began to flex his arm and move it around. It seems that you've made a full recovery, Orochimaru-sama, commented Kabuto as he stood up and saw his master move his arm about. Yes, no thanks to that blasted QB brat, replied Orochimaru, as he remembered his humiliating defeat at the hands of Naruto and how he lost his main base of operations in Ta no Kuni, Ricefield Country. Not to mention the funding he received from the daimyo, who he had successfully manipulated into doing his bidding. Have you received any word for our spies yet? The Snake Sanin asked. Yes, it seems that Kiri, Suna and several other shinobi villages, along with some of the other nations, are planning to ally themselves with the Heavenly Alliance. Even Iwa is planning to make peace with the Alliance, in the hope of avoiding destruction. Representatives for those villages and nations are now traveling to New Kumo for a special gathering in the village. There they'll meet the representatives for all the other villages and nations that are part of the Alliance and discuss whether to allow those who wish to ally with the Alliance or join it. And what of Konoha? Asked Orochimaru. They are also sending a group of representatives to the village, although unlike Suna or Kiri, they are not allying with the Heavenly Alliance. Seemingly Naruto-kun, or should I say the Raikage, has been launching a smearing campaign against Konoha. For the past few months he's releasing several of Konoha's dirty little secrets, and openly telling about his life in Konoha as a child, putting Konoha in a bad light with other nations and villages. Interesting, replied Orochimaru, but if Konoha is not allying with the Heavenly Alliance, then why are they sending representatives? Well, according to rumors they did try, but the Raikage denied them an alliance, and then made them pay compensations due to incidents that happened after the Battle of Konoha, along with some other things. He also made them a counteroffer for the alliance's help, stating that if they wanted the alliance protection, they would have to make some concessions to the Heavenly Alliance and that they would have to become a protectorate. And they agreed? Asked Orochimaru in mild surprise. It seems so, answered Kabuto. As soon as Orochimaru heard this, he began to chuckle and could not help but enjoy how the mighty Konoha was now being reduced to a mere protectorate state of another nation, which was founded and co-ruled by the former village patriarch. It made him almost want to applaud Naruto for humiliating Konoha so much and then have them beg for his protection from the other shinobi villages, something he would have loved to have seen. So Orochimaru-sama, what do you plan to do next? Asked the silver-haired man. For the time being we shall lay low and gather our strength. Given the recent war, our fighting strength is extremely limited. We also need to gather as much information on our new enemy as possible, before we move against him, replied Orochimaru. New enemy? I would hardly call Naruto-kun a new enemy, Orochimaru-sama. This is not the same boy you and I know from 10 years ago, Kabuto. Orochimaru rounded angrily. He is exceedingly more powerful than he ever was before and is more intelligent and cunning. He also has the support and the resources of New Kumo and a dozen other shinobi villages and who knows what else. Therefore I cannot and will not underestimate that brat anymore, since it has cost me too much already. At hearing this, Kabuto just nodded, knowing that his master was correct, after facing against Naruto in Konoha. He knew that Naruto was not the same person he was 10 years ago. He was more dangerous and powerful than anyone he had ever heard of before. Not to mention more manipulative, as he had heard what had happened to Kiri, Iwa and Kusa, wherein one master stroke. Naruto had shifted the balance of power in the shinobi world from Konoha to New Kumo and made the Heavenly Alliance the dominating force on this continent. Orochimaru-sama, if I may, spoke Kabuto. I believe you should think about relocating to our more secure bases, the ones that Gurren was unaware of. Since Naruto's forces captured her, and it's very possible that she would give them the locations of most of our bases. I find that unlikely, since I've placed special mental blocks on her, that prevent anyone extracting information from her mind, and she has been trained to resist interrogation. Short of her willingly telling them the location of our bases, they'll never find all of them. Since Gurren is as loyal to me as Kimimaro was, and would sooner die than betray me. Besides, if Gurren had betrayed me, New Kumo's forces would have attacked us already. That may be true, Orochimaru-sama, but as you said earlier, we cannot afford to underestimate the Raikage again. Not to mention he has the library of Benzaiten and who knows what jutsus, seals and other things he has available there. That would help them break Gurren and make her reveal our secrets to them. At this remark Orochimaru frowned, since Kabuto had a point. Perhaps you're right, Kabuto, perhaps we should move to a more said Orochimaru, but before he could finish there were several massive explosions. What the devil? Cried Orochimaru, before he turned to Kabuto and told him what was happening on the surveillance cameras. Within seconds, Kabuto went over to the surveillance station and activated the monitors to show them what was happening in the base. After going through several different sectors of the base, Kabuto stopped at one camera, where he saw a large hole in the ceiling of one sectors. But the thing that concerned Kabuto and Orochimaru most was the dozens of Storm, Bolt and regular new Kumo shinobi, who were jumping down into the base through the hole and attacking and killing the Oto guards. New Kumo, stated Orochimaru in surprise. It's not just there, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto stated, as he began to go through the other cameras of the other sectors of the base. There he showed that at least 5 other sectors now had large holes in their ceilings with new Kumo shinobi dropping down into them. Blast! Gurren's betrayed me, cried Orochimaru angrily, as he slammed his fist onto the monitor device. Knowing that the only way that Naruto's forces could have found him here was if Gurren gave him the locations of all their bases. Enter FMABOST Zing Symphony. After enter the base, the new Kumo shinobi broke up into teams and started racing through the base at high speed, cutting down any enemy shinobi that they encountered. That's as far as you go, roared one Oto nin accompanied by several other Oto shinobi as they intercepted a team of Bolt nins. But before they could attack, a Bolt shinobi wearing a lion mask threw several smoke bombs filling the hallway with smoke. Using their training in the art of the blind assassin, the Bolt shinobi quickly cut down the Oto nins before any of them knew what was happening. In another sector several Oto shinobi tried to halt a team of Storm shinobi advance, but similar to what the Bolt nins did. The Storm threw several flash bombs at the enemy ninjas, blinding them. Once the Oto ninjas were blinded, the Storm nins sped past them and left several exploding notes on the walls and ceiling of the hallway around the Oto nins, where before they could do anything, the notes exploded, destroying the hallway and killing them. In a different end of the base, several regular new Kum nins found their path blocked by a large earth wall created by one of the Oto guards. Not wasting a moment, the new Kumo shinobi placed several medium-level exploding notes on the wall and activated them, destroying the wall. Before the enemy shinobi behind the wall could recover from the blast, one of the new Kumo kunoiki did some hand seals and thought, Sutan, Mizurapa, water style, wild water wave. Gushing out a massive stream of water from her mouth, flooding the hallway. At the same time another new Kumo shinobi did some hand seals and generated a large amount of lightning in his hand. After which he then sent the lightning he created into the water that his female partner spat out and cried, Raiten, Kangekiha, lightning release, wave of inspiration. When the two attacks combined, the lightning enhanced wave filled the hallway and washed away the Oto shinobi in front of them, and electrocuting them at the same time, leaving them completely disabled when the attack ended. In the lower levels of another hallway in the base, several new Kumo jonin found themselves pinned down at the hallway corner by a group of Oto guards. Fortunately a member of the Yuki clan, phasing through Objects clan, appeared from the ceiling from one of the upper levels and dropped several smoke bombs on the Oto nins. At the same time another Yuki clan member appeared from the ceiling and threw a dozen or so shuriken at the Oto guards, killing 2 of them. With the enemy distracted, the new Kumo jonin that were pinned down, came out of the corner, where one of them did some hand seals and took a deep breath before thinking, Kaiten, Obiki, fire style, blazing fire. C and exhaled a massive wave of fire. At the same time another new Kumo nin did 3 quick hand seals and cried, Futon, Kami Oroshi, wind style, godly wind from the mountain. Before bringing his 2 hands forward and releasing a vortex of wind. That combined with the flames increasing them 10-fold. Within seconds, the massive wind-enhanced wave of fire enveloped the Oto nin, where all they could do was scream in pain, as their bodies were reduced to ash. Once the Oto ninja were dealt with, the new Kumo shinobi proceeded to move on to the next level of the base. End of FMABOST Zing Symphony. With Orochimaru and Kabuto. Seeing his men being slaughtered by the new Kumo shinobi, Orochimaru knew he needed to escape as trying to defend the base would be futile. since the base was compromised and more new Kumo were entering the base. It's time to take our leave of this place, Kabuto, ordered Orochimaru, while at the same time, silently cursing Naruto and Gurren. Before either of them could walk 5 feet away from the monitor, the door to the room exploded open, narrowly missing Orochimaru and Kabuto. When the two looked at the now blown open door, they saw a tall man with long black hair wearing sliver samurai-like armor with a white cloak, carrying a long katana attached to his left hip. But the thing that stood out most with the man was his bright narrow yellow eyes. Kabuto of course recognized the man immediately, since he could never forget the man's face or his dujutsu, the Takagen Hawkeye. Akechi Mitsuhide, muttered the bispectral man, as he readied himself. So, this is the infamous Akechi Mitsuhide, who you've told me so much about, Kabuto-kun, spoke Orochimaru, as he gleamed in fascination at Mitsuhide's dujutsu, which was said to rival the Hyuga's clan Byakugan White Eye. Orochimaru, it seems fortune has smiled upon me, spoke Mitsuhide as he walked into the room. By order of the Rokudaime Raikage of New Kumo and the Council of the Heavenly Alliance, you're hereby charged with crimes against the Heavenly Alliance, its allies and member nations. Surrender now and you'll be given a fair trial, if not, I've been authorized to use deadly force. Crimes against the Heavenly Alliance, how amusing, said Orochimaru, with an amused smirk. But I'm afraid, I will have to deny your generous offer, as I've no intention of surrendering to you or your alliance. At this point, that Kabuto suddenly caught a gleam of light at the corner of his eye. Orochimaru-sama, watch out. Acting fast, Orochimaru quickly ducked under a pair of curved swords, that were about to cut his head off like a pair of scissors. Once Orochimaru had rolled out of the way, a crimson-red mist flew by the former Snake Sannin and next to Mitsuhide, where it the reformed as medium-tall red-haired woman. Ah, I missed, said the woman with a slightly disappointed look on her face. When Orochimaru got back up onto his feet and saw the woman, he narrowed his eyes. Miyoshi Sayuri, hissed the Snake Sannin, with an annoyed tone, as he recognized the former Kiri Kuniki, who was the first and only woman to ever join the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichininshu, 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. He was also familiar with her clan and their bloodline, the Shitai Kiri Kitai, the mist body vapor, which allowed Sayuri to turn her body into a mist-like vapor. 7. Oh, I'm so glad that you know me, said Sayuri with an evil look smile. It wouldn't be any fun if you didn't know the person is about to take your head. You're welcome to try, my dear, but I believe I shall be the one who will take yours, and I will enjoy wringing that pretty little neck of yours. As soon as Orochimaru finished that remark, Mitsuhide drew his sword from his sheath like lightning, creating a crescent-shaped blade of wind in the same instant. Acting on pure instinct, Orochimaru sidestepped the high-speed attack, although was unable to avoid it completely and lost his left arm. Well, it seems I've touched a nerve with someone, remarked Orochimaru. When she saw the cold murderous look on Mitsuhide's face, before he then used his body-shedding technique to regurgitate a new body. Sayuri, please take care of Kabuto and leave Orochimaru to me, said Mitsuhide in a calm, emotionless tone. Normally the red-headed woman would have argued this, but this time she decided not to, given the mood her friend was in right now. Since despite his expressless face, she could see the cold murderous rage in Mitsuhide's eyes and knew well enough not to cross him when he was like this. With their opponents decided, the 4 shinobi eyed their opponents and prepared to attack. Today Orochimaru, the hawk shall devour the snake, spoke Mitsuhide. We shall see about that, replied Orochimaru, as he fell into a fighting stance. Mitsuhide was the first to make his move, where out of nowhere, 3 kunai appeared in his hand and he threw them at high speed at Orochimaru, who barely avoided the kunai. But what he was unaware of was that the kunai were a distraction. The next thing Orochimaru saw, was a crescent-shaped blade of wind flying towards him at frightening speed, where it severed his lower half from his upper half. But as soon as he was cut in half, snakes appeared out of the 2 halves and brought them together. Although when the 2 halves of Orochimaru were reconnected, Mitsuhide suddenly appeared on the left side of the Snake Sannin and delivered an powerful kick to the side of the man's head, sending him flying into a nearby wall. Orochimaru of course recovered quickly, where he spun himself around, so that his feet would hit the wall and channeled his chakra to them, so that he would stay on it. He then raised his hands up and cried, Senajushu, hidden shadow snake hands. Launching several snakes from his sleeve at Mitsuhide. In an instant, Mitsuhide countered this, where several shuriken appeared in his hand and he channeled his wind chakra into the shuriken to increase their cutting power and range. He then threw the shuriken at the snakes, where they cut the long reptiles in two. Orochimaru naturally evaded the wind-enhanced shuriken, where they embedded themselves into the wall. But what he was unaware of was that Mitsuhide had used the Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, Shadow Shuriken technique, where hidden in the first set of shuriken was a second set. Like the first set, they were enhanced by wind chakra, where they cut Orochimaru to shreds. But as soon as the shuriken shredded the snake Sannin, Orochimaru reverted into mud, revealing that he had replaced himself with a Doton Kage Bunshin Earth-style, Earth clone. As soon as Mitsuhide realized what had happened, a large snake appeared from underneath the floor and wrapped itself around Mitsuhide, preventing him from moving. At the same time the real Orochimaru emerged from the wall began to chuckle. Kukukuku, it seems that this time the snake will devour the hawk, Mitsuhide-kun, said Orochimaru, before ordering his snake to kill the former mist swordsman, where the large snake bit down on Mitsuhide's neck. But when the large snake bit down on Mitsuhide's neck, its fangs shattered, causing the large snake to scream in pain. When Orochimaru heard his pet scream in pain, he immediately noticed that Mitsuhide had replaced himself with a large stone block. Furthermore, he noticed a low-level exploding note attached to the block, which exploded before he could do anything, killing the snake and causing it to disappear in a puff of smoke. After the explosion, a large cloud of smoke filled the room. Before it could dissipate, Orochimaru saw the smoke disrupt as a fast-moving blade of wind flew at him. Knowing he couldn't avoid the attack in time, Orochimaru quickly used his body-shedding technique to regurgitate a new body for himself and to escape the attack, which cut his previous body in two. Once the smoke fully dissipated, Orochimaru saw Mitsuhide standing directly in front of him in Batojutsu stance. Seeing this, the snake Sannin narrowed his eyes, realizing that this battle would not be quick or easy. He also noticed that Kabuto was having difficulty with his battle with Sayuri, where despite the short disruption by the smoke, both of them proved to be evenly matched. Furthermore, things became even more difficult with the arrival of a dozen or so storm nins. Seeing that the situation had turned completely unfavorably, Orochimaru, who had now been joined by Kabuto, decided it was time to make a tactical retreat, given how they were now surrounded. Surrender Orochimaru, neither you nor Kabuto can win or escape, spoke Mitsuhide. I wouldn't be so sure of that Mitsuhide-kun, replied Orochimaru before he stepped down on a floor stone, which sunk down. Once the stone sunk down, Mitsuhide and the others began to feel the ground rumble and see the walls and ceiling starting to shake. What the hell have you done? Yelled Sayuri. Just a little insurance precaution, as we speak this base is about to be destroyed with all of you in it, replied Orochimaru with a slight sneer. But that's insane, you'll die along with us, spoke a female storm nin wearing a blue and black fox mask. Oh, I wouldn't be so sure of that, stated Kabuto with an arrogant smirk before he stepped on stone similar to one Orochimaru stepped on. As soon as Kabuto did this, a large trapdoor opened up in front of them and shut right after they jumped into it, before Mitsuhide or the others could follow after them. Oh no you don't, cried Sayuri as she prepared to turn her body into mist and follow after the two rogue shinobi. But before she could, Mitsuhide stopped her by grabbing hold of her arm. No Sayuri, you can't go after them alone, we need to get out of her now. After stopping Sayuri, Mitsuhide then turned to the fox-masked storm nin and told her to order all their forces to evacuate the base immediately. Within minutes the underground base came crashing down. Fortunately by that time Mitsuhide and his people were able to escape along with a few of the remaining Oto guards, who surrendered. It seems we failed another mission, said Sayuri as she walked up to her co-commander. Regrettably so, but by now our other forces will have attacked Orochimaru's other remaining bases across the continent. This will cripple his organization for years and sooner or later Orochimaru will answer for his crimes, replied Mitsuhide, while Sayuri just nodded. Soon after, a bold nin appeared in front of them. Mitsuhide Sosai Commander, we were able to recover the reports that you had us look for, spoke the bold nin as he handed some files to raven-haired man. Very good, now inform all our people to move out in 30 minutes, ordered Mitsuhide, where the masked shinobi just nodded and walked away. Are those the files that Masato, head of the CIND division, told us to look out for? Asked Sayuri, as she looked at the files with Mitsuhide. Yes, these will be very useful to Naruto for the negotiations in the gathering. We should send them ahead of us so that they will arrive in time before the representatives arrive, answered Mitsuhide, where the red-headed woman just nodded again. Half an hour later the company new Kumo shinobi moved out and made their way back to their village. 5 days later near the coast of Kaminari no Kuni, Lightning Country. Currently sailing near the coast of Kaminari no Kuni was the flagship of New Kumo fleet, the Zenio Ruo, along with the 2 fortress ships that were escorting it. Standing on the bow of the ship was Seiwa Anasu, watching as the ships grew closer to the distant coast of Kaminari no Kuni. Enjoying the scenery? Asked Hitaki Kakashi, as he walked up to Anasu, who kept an emotionless facade when he turned to the older man. Yes, I enjoy feeling the cool salt air blowing against my face, answered Anasu in a neutral tone. I've heard that you and Naruto are very close with one another and that you've been with him ever since he was banished from Konoha. Yes, we've been. I consider Naruto my closest friend, as well as my rival. Could you tell me about some of the things that happened after he was banished? Asked Kakashi. Why do you not ask Konohamaru-san or Iruka-san? I'm certain Naruto has told them about our travels the past 10 years. I would prefer asking you, if that's okay. Asked Kakashi, since he didn't want to admit that he wasn't on great speaking terms with either Konohamaru or Iruka. At least not since Naruto was banished and after he abandoned his student. I'm afraid it is not all right, Hitaki-san, replied Anasu in an icy tone. Because if you think that I'll give you personal information on my friend to use against him, you're sadly mistaken. No, that's not what I want, Kakashi explained hastily, since all he wanted to know was what had happened to his former student after he was banished. Really? Well, you'll excuse me if I find that hard to believe, given how you never cared that much about him before, replied Anasu coldly, causing the copycat nin to flinch and lower his head in shame. After a minute or two of silence, Anasu decided to leave and began to walk away. Would it matter if I said I was sorry? Asked Kakashi without raising his head. That is entirely up to Naruto, not me, responded Anasu emotionlessly without turning around to look back at the Konoha nin. Is that also why you're treating me with such disdain? Asked Kakashi, since it was obvious to anyone that Anasu didn't hold Kakashi in high regard. No, I've my own reasons for disliking you, Hitaki, or have you forgotten how you killed my kinsman Haku? At this remark, Kakashi again flinched, but before he could reply to this, Anasu spoke again. The fact is, Hitaki, the only reason you're still alive is because I know that you never intended to kill my kinsman and because killing you would be pointless, since it won't bring my kinsman back. Now I suggest you head back to your bunk. We're nearing the coast and all representatives and dignitaries are to stay in their rooms until we arrive at the dock. With that said, Anasu walked away from Kakashi, leaving the man alone on the bow with his thoughts. After Kakashi and Anasu finished their talk, Kakashi headed back to bunk, knowing that if he didn't he would be escorted back by one of the new Kumo shinobi or crewmen. As they neared the coastline, the new Kumo guards that were with the representatives made sure that everyone was in their assigned rooms. When the dignitaries and representatives asked why they were being sent to their rooms, they were told by the guards it was for security reasons. Eventually, after about an hour and a half of sailing, the 3 fortress ships arrived at a coast with massive cliffs. As they neared the cliffs, 2 massive doors disguised as the cliff walls parted way, to allow the 3 ships to enter a secret naval base built inside the cliff. Once the 3 ships were in, the double doors slowly closed shut. The base itself was massive and like a small city filled buildings and hundreds of workers, sailors and shinobi, as well as dozens of smaller ships and a few submarines that were docked. The dock itself was actually big enough to house all 3 fortress ships with little trouble. Naturally, when the representatives came out of their rooms and onto the deck and saw this, they were completely overwhelmed by the dock. Many of course asked where they were, but all that Anasu and the other shinobi would say was that they were in a secure naval base and that it was classified. Once everyone was off the ship, they made their way to the other end of the base, where they boarded a train. When asked about the train, Anasu explained that the train traveled through an underground tunnel that would take them from the base to an outpost just outside New Kumo, where they would then make their way to the village from there. After everyone had boarded, the train started to move forward across the tracks. The journey between the base and the outpost took about a day to complete without any stops. But despite the length, the journey wasn't too bad for those on board. In fact, many enjoyed it and had to admit that New Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni would become very industrial. The carts on the train were also well lit up and allowed everyone to see each other and walk around, when they needed. Eventually, when they arrived at the outpost, they met up with the dignitaries and representatives from Iwa, Ta no Kuni and the Fuma clan. The representatives from Ta no Kuni and the Fuma clan had made their way from one of New Kumo forts at the borders of Kaminari no Kuni to this outpost by armored cart, which had no windows. While the Iwa representatives landed at small port and then traveled in a similar manner that the representatives of Ta no Kuni and the Fuma clan traveled in. Once the representatives had all met one another, Anasu, his wives and the rest of his company led the groups out of the outpost and into the valley where New Kumo lay. It took about 3 hours to cross the valley, since the shinobi members had to walk at the same pace as the non-shinobi members of the groups. But after traveling through the Genjutsu Cloud 8, they eventually arrived at the massive metal gates of New Kumo, which were flanked by 2 massive stone dragons that were in a crouching position. Naturally, the representatives were in shock over the size of the wall for New Kumo, which was easily 100 meters tall and 30 meters thick, and stretched from one end of the Wei Valley to the other and was flanked by mountains. Once everyone got over their surprise, Anasu explained to everyone that they would enter the village in their respected groups one at a time. With Tazuna, Inari and the 2 samurai guards first, Gaara and his group second, the Mizukage and her group third, and so on and so forth with the other representatives until the Konoha group, who would be the last to enter. As soon as Anasu had finished explaining everything to the representatives and the dignitaries, Anasu ordered the gates open and led Tazuna and Inari forward, with his wives. Enter Star Wars, The Phantom Menace OST, Augi's Great Municipal Band. At the moment Anasu, Inari and Tazuna entered through the gates, they were greeted by blaring horns and music. When they entered the village itself, they saw that the main street had been cleared for them with hundreds of soldiers in gold-colored armor, flanking both sides of the street acting like a guard of honor. As well as keeping thousands of people, who were cheering behind the soldiers on both sides, from entering the street. What is all this? Asked Tazuna over the loud cheering crowds. This is the welcoming party, as everyone in the village wanted to greet our new allies and friends, replied Anasu with a smile as he and his wives and fiancés led Inari and others. As they walked forward, Inari and others saw people on both sides cheering wildly, waving flags with the symbol of New Kumo and the Kaminari no Kuni on them, along with a symbol he never seen before. He could even see people throwing confetti and flowers at him and yelling out things like, "Long live the Heavenly Alliance," and "Long live the Raikage and Kicho-sama." 9. As Tazuna and Inari walked on, they could see fireworks be shot up into the air along with flower petals and more confetti falling down on them, which were being dropped by Skyhawk ninjas who were flying above them. Damn, Naruto sure knows how throw a party, commented Tazuna, as he waved to the cheering people. Well, when have you ever known Ni-sama to do things small? Replied Inari, as he waved to the cheering people. Shortly after the Nami no Kuni representatives entered the village, Gaara and his group entered and like Inari and his grandfather, were completely overwhelmed by the greeting the citizens and shinobi of New Kumo were giving. Why are they cheering us like this? Asked Temari, who not used to being treated like this, especially in a foreign village. The people here wish to welcome you all as friends, since many nations that have sent representatives will be joining the Heavenly Alliance. While others like yourselves will become our new allies, making the alliance that much stronger, answered one of the New Kumo shinobi escorting them. So this is a celebration, not only to welcome us, but also to celebrate the alliance becoming larger, answered Gaara, where the New Kumo nin nodded. Well, whatever the reason, I sure could get used to stuff like this, remarked Kankuro as he waved and smiled at the cheering people, enjoying the attention he was getting. Especially when he saw many pretty girls in the crowds waving at him and blowing kisses. At the same time, not far behind, the Mizukage, the Water Daimyo and the other representatives of Kiri and Mizu no Kuni entered the village into the cheering village. Like Gaara and Inari groups, the representatives of Mizu no Kuni and Kiri were slightly overwhelmed by the greeting they were receiving. But soon enough they started to enjoy the welcoming they were receiving, where they waved and smiled back at the cheering people. The Mizukage was especially popular with many of the men in the crowd, who were cheering even louder than before at the female cage. Well, I must say the people of New Kumo certainly know how to make you feel welcome, commented Mei, who smiled and waved at the cheering crowds and could see people cheering from the rooftops of building and out windows. Yes, they do, replied the Water Daimyo, who although was still not used to being the leader of his nation, was enjoying being greeted by the cheering crowds. One by one, the different representatives and dignitaries entered the village and were greeted by the people, who in turn waved and smiled at the cheering people as they walked up the long wide streetway. Eventually the representatives saw a large wooden platform, which was directly in front of a large inner wall, which led to the next district. On the platform was Naruto with the lightning daimyo Kicho, Juzliang, the snow spring daimyo Kazuhana Kayuki, the Yondaime Hoshikage Sumeru, the daimyo of Kuma no Kun, Bear Country. The leader of Takagaku, Hidden Waterfall, Shibuki, the daimyo of Taki no Kuni, Waterfall Country, and the leader of Yukigaku, Hidden Snow, who like the others were the original members of the Heavenly Alliance. In front of the platform was a large banner with the same symbol that Inari saw on some of the flags that people were waving earlier. 10. When the representatives saw it, they guessed this was the symbol of the Heavenly Alliance. Some of them even recognized it as the symbol of unity, which was sort of fitting, given how the Heavenly Alliance was a group of nations working together. End Star Wars, The Phantom Menace OST, Augi's great municipal band. Eventually the music and cheering came to an abrupt halt, once the representatives of Hai no Kuni and Konoha entered the village. Instead of cheering people, Tsunade and the others were greeted with complete and utter silence, along with angry stares from the people. The street was so quiet that you hear the small birds chirping and a few people coughing. As they continued to walk along the street, they could practically feel everyone's eyes on them. So this is what it was like to be Naruto, when he was growing up, thought Sakura sadly, as she never felt so isolated and alone before. As like everyone else in the group, she could practically feel the animosity that everyone had for them. She even noticed a young boy near the front of the crowd, preparing to throw a tomato at them. Only to be stopped by his father, who whispered something to him before looking back up and glaring at Sakura and the others. After about 20 minutes or more, which felt more like an eternity to the group, they arrived in front of the platform where Naruto and the other original members of the alliance stood. Standing near the platform were the representatives and leaders of the other member nations of the Heavenly Alliance. Once all the representatives had arrived and stood in front of the platform, Naruto stood in front of the others on the platform and spoke. Having endured a bloody civil war that torn families apart from one another, the shinobi of Kumo and the people of Kaminari no Kuni came together to build this place. Now it stands as a monument, proving that a people divided can be reunited again and build something that will last through the ages. It was also in this place that the first member nations of the Heavenly Alliance came together for the purpose of creating a just and lasting peace for one another, which later grew into an unprecedented alliance. Today we have gathered here again with representatives from several other nations who wish to join us. To them I say welcome, and it is my deepest wish to strengthen our bonds of friendship and render a permanent peace that now exists among the alliance members and its allies. I also wish to welcome our new allies and friends and hope that our discussions in the coming days will be fruitful, so that a bridge of trust can be built between the Heavenly Alliance and your individual nations, and through this, we can enrich each other and bring prosperity to our lands. Finally, to the representatives of Iwa, I personally want to thank you for seeing the wisdom of ceasing hostility between our separate nations and avoiding further bloodshed on both sides. It is my deepest hope that the coming talks will bring about a better understanding of one another and create a lasting peace that will endure and prevent the loss of lives in war. Thank you. When Naruto finished his speech, the crowd and representatives all applauded, where Naruto then took a step back and allowed the lightning daimyo Kicho step forward and spoke. As my husband the Raikage has said, I wish welcome all of you to New Kumo and hope that you enjoy your visit. Please know that your safety and security is our highest priority and that we will do our utmost to see that no harm comes to you. It is my deepest wish that one day, all the nations, shinobi and non-shinobi, can come together as one people and build something that we can all be proud of, so that future generation can look back at these moments with pride and eternal gratitude. Thank you. Like before, the crowds and representatives all applauded the female daimyo when she had finished her speech. She then went on to say that for the remainder of the day there would be a festival and asked everyone to enjoy themselves. Once the speeches were done, Naruto and the other leaders left the platform and headed for the Raikage Tower mountain, while the crowd slowly dissipated to prepare for the coming festival. At the same time, Anasu walked up to the representatives and explained to them that Naruto and Kicho would meet them tomorrow. Anasu then went on to explain that he and his people would escort them to a private hotel in the civilian district 11, which had been made ready for them, and that they would be guarded 24/7 by shock squads. He also told them that they would be allowed to join the celebrations tonight if they wanted, but would have an escort with them at all times. When they arrived at the hotel, the shinobi representatives were all led to their respected rooms. The rooms were quite spacious and well furnished, with a small bathroom and single bed and medium-sized sitting room with a couch and chairs. The water daimyo was of course given a suite, along with the other dignitaries from the other non-shinobi nations. Surprisingly, Udon, Mogi, who were married to each another, Konohamaru and Iruka and his family were all given suites as well. Excuse me Anasu Dono, but I think you've given us the wrong room, spoke Iruka, when he saw the room that he and his family were given. There's no mistake Iruka-san, this room was assigned to you and your family personally by the Raikage himself. If you or your family needs anything, please just call the staff and they'll deliver it to your room without charge. Iruka of course tried to refuse the room, stating that it was too much. But before he could, Anko and Hiko interrupted them. Come on Iruka-kun, don't be so noble, let's live it up a bit, it's not every day that we get to do something like this. We can even make this a miniature vacation, said Anko as she started to pout, slowly weakening her husband's resolve. Yeah, come on too-san, this place is awesome and it all free, thanks to Naruto ni, so can we stay see? Pleaded Hiko, as she used the infamous puppy dog eye technique that daughters could use to break down their fathers. After a minute or two of pouting from his pregnant wife and puppy dog looks from his daughter, Iruka broke and gave in to their pleas. Furini, you win, we'll take the room. At hearing this, both mother and daughter cheered, after which Hiko ran to the bedroom to the left, saying it was hers and started to jump up and down the king-size bed like a trampoline. Anko on the other hand went over to the other end of the large living room and jumped onto a comfortable couch, where she put her feet on the nearby coffee table and started to eat the complimentary fruit basket. When Anasu saw the former teacher shrug his shoulders in defeat, the white-haired man just smiled and placed hand around Iruka's shoulder as an act of sympathy. Don't let it get you down Iruka-san, you're not the first man to be coerced by his wife and daughter and you certainly won't be the last. You should consider yourself lucky, you only have to deal with your wife and daughter, I on the other hand have to deal with 6 wives and 2 fiancés. This of course made Iruka smile, where he then thanked Anasu. Later on, after everyone had settled down, the majority of the representatives of Konoha, along with the representatives of Suna and the others, left the hotel to join in the festival. Naturally, the groups were covertly followed by shock nins who were assigned to watch over them. The festival was held in the main street of the village. All along the sides of the street, there were different kinds of stands, filled with food, games, costumes, sake and other fun things to eat, drink and do. Funny enough, when Tsunade and the other Konoha members joined the festival, the people did not remain silent like they did before. Instead, they just flat out ignored them and continued to enjoy the festival. Fortunately, the stand owners did not ignore them, although they did treat them with a sharp coolness, indicating that they weren't happy serving them. Tsunade and the others naturally guessed that Naruto was somehow behind this and guessed that he made sure that his people didn't start any incidences with them. That or the people simply didn't want to start trouble that would ruin the fun and celebrations for everyone. After a while though, the representatives turned in for the night, knowing that they had a big day tomorrow. The next day in Naruto's office. Currently sitting in his office, Naruto had just finished speaking to the leader of Getsugaku, Sado. For the last 20 minutes they discussed some of the things that his village would be required to do when it becomes a member of the alliance and what it would gain. Naruto of course assured Sado that his village would be treated as an equal partner and that they would go into further details in the coming days. Once he had finished his discussion, he went to in-speaker and told his secretary Nanao to send in the next party. When the double doors leading to his office opened, the Rokudai Mizukage Terumi Mei and the newly formed, 5th generation of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichininshu entered. Naturally, Naruto was familiar with each of the new members, for as soon as he had heard of the group being reformed, he had Anasu and Gan Ning gather everything they could on the group. The first member was the person he was most familiar with, Hajime Saito, also known as the Kiri no Okami, the Wolf of the Mist. Saito was a highly skilled swordsman who mastered the Mizoguchi Harito-Ryu fighting style, which was recognized as one of the most lethal sword fighting styles in the world. Like Mei, Saito was a former leader of one of the rebel factions that fought against the Godai Mizukage and the former Water Daimyo. He was also a former member of the fourth generation of Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu, but defected later on, like Mitsuhide and Sayuri. Now however he was the leader of the new generation of swordsmen and had been reinstated as leader of Kiri's assassination division. The second member was Senshi Natsu, a young man, who was about Naruto's age and had long red hair that was tied up in a loose ponytail and went down to his lower back. He wore a standard uniform of a Hydra member 12, with a red cape over it and had a small scar that went down his left eye. Natsu was a rising star in Kiri, whose fame quickly rose during the civil war in Kiri and became known as Kiri no Hitokiri, the manslayer of the mist. He was highly gifted in the art of the sword and was the protege of Takeru Hiko 13, who was former member of the second generation of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu and first man to become one without mastering one of their special swords. Like his teacher, Natsu was highly proficient in the Tenkan fighting style and used it to a phenomenal degree, in conjunction with his Jinten swift-release bloodline, making him the fast shinobi in Kiri and a lethal enemy for anyone to have. The third member was Mibu Hataru, who had a rather distinctive appearance. He was a tall man with wild spiky red hair and red eyes, who wore bright crimson red armor with a white haori over it, that fell almost to his feet. Hataru was a former bounty hunter and swordsman, who was hired by one of the rebel factions to fight for them. Due to his great skill with a katana and ability to combine it with his wind affinity, making it even more lethal and powerful. At the end Civil War, Hataru became known the Shinko no Ijin, the Crimson Devil, after he conquered an entire castle single-handedly. That was guarded by over 1,000 soldiers loyal to the former water daimyo, who were all killed by Hataru. The fourth member was Akira Keiko. He was a tall young man in his late teens and wore a standard Kiri uniform and had short blonde hair that was slicked back and dull blue eyes. Like Hataru, Keiko was not from Kiri and became part of it and Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu after the Civil War. In fact Keiko was the former student of Hataru, where with his help he developed his own unique sword style. That was used in conjunction with his fire affinity, resulting in him becoming known as the Honu no Kenshi, the Flame Swordsman. The fifth member was Chojuro, who was the only member of the new generation of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu, that actually wielded one of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu special swords. Chojuro was of average height and built with short tufty blue hair, and dark eyes. He wore square, black-rimmed glasses connected to what appear to be headphones, a blue pin-striped shirt with a standard Kiri flank jacket over it and camouflage pattern pants. The sixth member was Arai Seiku. He was a young man, who was in his mid-teens and wore a standard Kiri uniform. From what Anasu and Ganning told him, Seiku was a rising star in Kiri and a gifted swordsman, much like Natsu. He was extremely fast and was famed for being able to use fast-moving sword techniques to take down and kill his enemies before they knew what happened, making him a lethal assassin. Seiku was also well known for being able to keep his emotions hidden from others and always retained a blank face. This was believed to be the result of the trauma he suffered when he was younger, where he watched his parents die in the war. The seventh and final member was also the youngest member of the group, named Sendai aka was a young boy about 12 years old, with short white hair and yellow eyes and wore a white shirt and blue shorts. Aka was also credited being the youngest member of the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichinin Shu ever, as well as a child prodigy who was gifted in not only using the sword, but also in Raiten Ninjutsu. Who was able to combine some of his Raiten Jutsu with his sword, to greatly increase the destructive power of his attacks. He was also well known for being able to take down many highly skilled shinobi who were twice if not decades older than him. Once Naruto saw the female Mizukage, he rose up from his seat and offered his hand to her, which she took. Mizukage-san, it is a pleasure to finally meet you at last. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a while now, said Naruto as he shook Mei's hand. Thank Raikage-san, it is a pleasure to finally meet you as well. Saito has told me quite a bit about you as well. Although I must confess even before then, I've wanted to meet the famed Arashi no Oni, Demon of Storms, for a long time. 14, or would you prefer I call by your other moniker, Raiden no Kami, God of Thunder and Lightning, since it's what most people are calling you? I would prefer if you call me neither, Mizukage-san, since I never cared for either of those names, as the term demon has some rather bad memories for me. While the name Raiden no Kami makes me sound egotistical, which is why I would prefer if you call me Naruto, since I like to think we're friends now. Of course, replied the Mizukage with a smile, but only if you call me Mei in return. That's fair enough, responded Naruto before he offered Mei one of the 3 comfortable armchairs in front of his desk, which she took, while the Kiri no Shinobugatana Shichininshu stood behind her. I must say, Naruto-san, you're much more handsome in person than the rumors say. Thank you, Mei-san, you're very kind, and clearly the rumors of your beauty do not do you justice, replied Naruto with a slight blush, as he tried to be polite. But as soon as he said this, he could feel the murderous glares of his 3 bodyguards' wives on him, making the young Raikage sweat a little, knowing he was going to get it later on. Soon enough, though, the conversation turned to more serious issues, such as the alliance talks between Kiri, Mizu no Kuni and the Heavenly Alliance. I have say I was rather surprised that we would be meeting just you, Naruto-san, since I had expected the Water Daimyo and I would be meeting both you and Kicho-sama together. The Water Daimyo, as you know, is meeting my wife Kicho in the royal palace. Since she is in charge of dealing with matters that involve the Daimyos and other nations, while I deal with matters involving the shinobi villages, explained Naruto. I see, and if I may, when do we start the talks for the alliance between my village and the alliance? Asked Mei. I'm afraid our talks will not begin for several days, since I must first deal with the peace treaty between the alliance and Iwa. After which we then must begin the talks for villages and other nations that wish to join the alliance. But once they're done, we can begin the alliance talks with your village. I understand, Naruto-san, and thank you. While you're waiting, and if you're interested, perhaps you and your people here would enjoy a tour of the village. Yes, we would very much enjoy that, replied Mei, as she was very interested in seeing more of New Kumo, which was easily 5 times the size of any of the other shinobi villages. I'm very glad to hear that, as I've preparations made for all of you to see more of the village with 2 other groups, replied Naruto, after which he continued to go over matters with Mei in the upcoming talks with Kiri. With the Konoha and Suna representatives. After being gathered together in the hotel, the representatives of Konoha and Suna were met outside by platoon of New Kumo shinobi led by Uzumaki Takara and Uzumaki Taira. Both of whom were among Naruto's wives and also sisters. 15. Naturally, both Iruka and Anko recognized Takara, who had saved Anko's life during the Battle of Konoha. Shikamaru and his teammates also recognized Taira, who had helped save Choji from the giant bear summon at the battle. When Jiraiya saw both girls, he quickly went into pervert mode and started to hit on them, since he remembered them from when Naruto laid down his punishment on the council. As always, when it came to girls like Takara and Taira, Jiraiya's eyes were fixed on their chests and even started to plan to put the girls in his next book. Fortunately, before he could do too much damage, Tsunade reeled Jiraiya in and reminded him that both women were married to Naruto, where she then bashed his head to ground, making sure he remembered. Needless to say, it worked, as Jiraiya didn't try to hit on either woman again, although it didn't stop him eyeing the girls when Tsunade was looking and envy Naruto, where he thought, Naruto, you lucky dog. As the 2 groups made their way through the industry and shinobi districts of the village, Tsunade and some of the others started some conversations with the women, hoping to get to know them better. Naturally, whenever the conversations turned to things about Naruto, both girls changed the subject, but were willing to talk about general things. Takara was a young medium-tall woman with long dark brown hair that fell below her waist. She had a very attractive face that gave her an almost down-to-earth look, where she didn't need any makeup to highlight her beauty. Since she had what one would call the homespun allure, or what others might cheerfully refer to as the girl next door look. She wore shorts with a black ribbon on each leg instead of regular shorts and a pair of fighting leather gloves. She also wore a sleeveless white shirt underneath a sleeveless black vest with a zipper to cover her impressive D-cup breasts, which gained the attention of many of the male members of the 2 groups. But like all Kaneki in the shinobi world, Takara was more than a pretty face. In fact, she was renowned kuoichi in New Kumo, who came from a family of shinobi and was a lethal shinobi in battle. When the Konoha and Suna groups met Takara, the 2 groups found her to be bright, cheerful, optimistic and positive person, who seemed to be an extremely kind and respectful to everyone, including to the Konoha group. She went out of her way to introduce herself to Tsunade, stating she had admired her skill as a kunoichi for many years and was inspired to create her Raken Thunder Fist technique from Tsunade's superhuman strength technique. Naturally, the 2 groups remembered this technique, since Naruto had used this technique against the Yondaime Tsuchikage Ryoku, during the Battle of Konoha. The technique involved her using lightning affinity to increase her speed and enhance her strength to a phenomenal level, as well as having the added effect of paralyzing her opponents when she hit them. Before the Civil War, Takara's father had been killed on a mission for Kumo. Later on during the Civil War, her mother died after defending her and her sister Taira from shinobi loyal to the godime Raikage. With the loss of her mother, Takara and her sister joined one of the rebel factions and fought against the godime Raikage and the former lightning daimyo. During the Civil War, Takara used her Raken to devastating effect, leading her to be known as Takara no Raken, Takara the Thunder Fist. Like her sister Takara, Taira was an attractive young woman. She had long blonde hair that went down to her rear and wore black leather pants with tall black leather boots, along with a strapless short corset that helped to emphasize her ample D-cup breasts and stopped short to show her midriff. The corset also split open between her breast and went down in a lightning bolt shape but was held together by thin but strong strands of string that went in between the split. 16. In terms of personality, Taira was a lot more carefree than her sister, where she enjoyed teasing people and flirted a lot, which she showed when she teased and flirted slightly with Konohamaru, who of course turned red and did his best not to look at Taira's impressive cleavage, given how she was the wife of his surrogate big brother and because the older sister of his new wife was standing right next to him. Taira of course knew she was attractive and was unafraid to use her sexuality to get what she wanted or to distract someone like some kunoiki do, which was why she dressed the way she did. Yet when in battle she could as cold and as ruthless as the most hardened shinobi veteran, especially when someone threatened a person she cared about, such as her sister. Even though Taira and Takara considered each other sisters, they weren't by blood. Like Takara's father, both Taira's parents died in a mission together when she was very young. Not long after they died, Takara's parents adopted Taira, since both Taira's parents and Takara's father were former teammates. After the Civil War, Taira was offered the position as the Raiko no Megami, goddess of lightning, due to her great skill in Raiten ninjutsu. Naturally, she took the position and became a member of the Go Genso no Megami, the 5 elemental goddesses, which was an elite group of kunoiki, who were highly skilled in elemental ninjutsu and specialized in a specific one. Eventually, after a while, the Konoha and Suna groups arrived at the ruling district and made their way to the Raikage Tower mountain. The two groups naturally thought that Naruto had built his residence into the mountain like in the old Kumo. But instead, they were shocked to hear that the whole mountain itself had been hollowed out and became the Raikage's residence. When Temari asked how he did it, in little under 3 years, Taira simply replied, "It's Naruto." When they came up to the main entrance to the Raikage Tower mountain, they found it to be closed, where 2 massive double stone doors blocked their way and were flanked by 2 giant stone tigers in a crouching position. When Takara ordered the guards to open the doors, the 2 shinobi simply placed their hands on 2 carved circles that were on the doors, and then channeled their chakra into the double doors, causing them to slowly open. When the 2 groups entered the Raikage Tower mountain, they could not help but be in awe of the building. The main hall of the tower mountain, which was busy with activity, with people moving about, looked like a palace hall. In the middle of it was a beautiful fountain, with cool clear water and statues made of pure marble that resembled dragons, tigers and falcons. There were benches made of solid marble, while the seats themselves were covered in soft leather. Light came in through several large openings and was distributed all over the halls by both water and special light-emitting crystals, which glowed softly, giving the tower mountain a very soft but strong amount of light. The walls were smooth and inlaid with copper mirrors which appeared to be well polished, as well as silver and gold designs that made the place even more grandiose than before. In some areas there were also healthy trees and bushes giving out a sweet scent to the tower mountain. The floors were made from tiles that combined marble, jade, and smooth limestone and were very strong. When the 2 groups looked up, they saw all the different floor levels in the tower mountain. There were stairs and even lifts to get a person up to any of the levels they wanted to go. At the top roof point of the tower mountain there was a large glass dome that was directly above the fountain, which shone more light down on it and the rest of the tower. It also allowed the stones in the fountain to sparkle in the light, helping to illuminate the fountain even more. Taira then went on to explain to the 2 groups that there were several different departments on each level, which dealt with all the different affairs in the village, both civilian and shinobi. After seeing all this, Kiba, being his usual self, commented on the Raikage's resident. "Damn, giant ships, giant secret naval base, giant hidden shinobi village, massive airship and giant cage tower, you think Naruto is overcompensating for something. Hearing this, Taira decided to have a little fun at the Inuzuka's expense. I wouldn't be so quick to judge if I were you, Fido, said Taira before a saucy grin appeared on her face. Besides, Naruto-kun has nothing to compensate for. At this remark, most of the Suna and Konoha representatives looked at Taira with disbelieving looks at what she had said. Many of the girls, of course, turned red at Taira's remark, although not as red as Hinata, who turned a shade of red that had not been seen on her since her younger years, back when Naruto was still part of Konoha. The male members of the two groups of course differed slightly, where some of them blushed slightly, while others like Kankuro, Jiraiya, Konohamaru and Kiba started to have nosebleeds. Jiraiya even took out his notepad hoping to hear some details. Sister, cried a slightly blushing Takara, at her adopted older sister's comment. What? Said Taira, not seeing the problem. Well, it's true, and I've sure as hell never heard you, Takara, or any of the other girls for that matter, complain about Naruto's. That enough, Taira, nay, cried the now red Takara, since she certainly didn't want her sex life or any of the other girls' sex life talked about so openly or in front of people they only barely knew. Yesh, sis, you really need to stop being such a prude like Okatsu, Suafon and Nanao. It just sex, Taira replied, waving the whole thing off like it was nothing. It's our personal life, Taira, nay. There are times and places for these sort of things, and this is certainly not one of those times, retorted Takara. Before Taira could respond to this, Tsunade suddenly intervened. Excuse me, but would you mind leading us to Naru, I mean the Raikage's office? Since, in case you two have forgotten, we have a meeting with him. At this, Takara blushed again, since she had completely forgotten the whole reason why they were here. Yes, I'm sorry about that. You're right, of course. Please follow me this way, said the young brown-haired woman, where she then gave her blonde sister a look telling her that their talk wasn't over. Taira in turn just rolled her eyes, not really caring, since she still didn't see the problem. After the heated discussion between the two sisters had died down, Takara and Taira led the Konoha and Suna groups to the elevators. They then told the other new Kumo shinobi with them that they could handle things here by themselves, where the other shinobi just nodded and left. Once they left, the two groups boarded the two large elevators that took them up to the top level of the Raikage residence, which was where Naruto's office laid. Once they reached the top level, the two groups walked down a small hallway that led to two large oak double doors. Next to the doors was a desk with a woman sitting at it, doing paperwork. The woman was slim and attractive young woman with long black hair that was kept pinned back, with flat bangs that hung to the right side of her face. She had slightly light blue eyes with a deep tint of violet and wore glasses with a slight oval shape to them and wore a black kasode and a black hakama. Upon seeing the woman, Takara smiled kindly and greeted the woman, gaining her attention. Hello Nanao, I've the Konoha and Suna representative here for their scheduled meeting with the Raikage. After hearing Takara greet her, Nanao looked up and gave Takara a respectful nod and then turned to look at Tsunade and Gaara, who were leading their respected groups. The Raikage is currently in a meeting with the Kiri representatives, but will be done shortly and will be seeing both of your groups together. Both leaders of the two groups were surprised slightly by this, but nodded in understanding nonetheless. Would any of you care for some refreshments while you wait? Asked the young woman, to which all the members of the two groups shook their heads, indicating they were fine. As they waited for Naruto to finish his meeting with the Mizukage, the two groups stood patiently in the hallway. During that time, Jiraiya began to eye Nanao up, since there was no question that Nanao was a lovely young thing. He even began form ideas for a scene in his next book, involving a hot young secretary with glasses and her boss. At the same time, another idea sprung into his mind, involving a hot sexy young librarian alone with her male assistant. Giggling at his own brilliance, Jiraiya took out his notepad and pencil and began to write down Nanao's description with a few added modifications. He even started to jot down some notes on the scenes he had planned. But within seconds of him putting pencil to paper, 4 paper shuriken flew through the air. The first hit his notepad, pinning it to the wall. The second and third shuriken embedded themselves into wall on both sides of Jiraiya's head, narrowly missing it. The fourth and final paper shuriken embedded itself into the wall like the other two, although at much lower point right between Jiraiya's legs, missing a certain body part by inches. I would appreciate Jiraiya-san if you would refrain from using me in any of those vulgar things that you call books, spoke Nanao. As she looked up from her paperwork and fixed her glasses and held up another set of paper shuriken, while giving the Toad Sage a stern and dangerous glare. At this Jiraiya made an audible gulp, after seeing the stern and dangerous glare from Nanao, clearly indicating she was deadly serious. Yet at the same time he could not help but be surprised at Nanao using Kami no Jutsu paper technique, something he had only seen once from a former female student. Shuriken made out of paper, I've never seen anything quite like that before, thought Neji in mild wonderment. It seems that even Naruto-sama's secretary is not to be underestimated. HMPH, I think I might like her, thought Tsunade as she smirked at how Nanao put Jiraiya in his place. Eventually after a few minutes, the double doors opened and the Mizukage and her party left, where she greeted both the Hokage and the Kazekage respectfully before heading down the hallway and to the elevators. The Raikage will see you now, said Nanao, where the two groups went into Naruto's office, while Taira and Takara waited in the hallway with Nanao. When the two groups entered the office, they found it to be a simple enough place. It was a large double O-shaped room with Naruto's desk facing the double doors and a large window behind the desk so that Naruto could look out the window and over the village when he turned around. On the walls of both sides of the circular room in front of Naruto's desk were bookshelves filled with scrolls and books, as well as a small spiral stairs that allowed Naruto to go up to the platform above the bookshelves, which led to a balcony that was right above Naruto's desk. Naruto and books, somehow that doesn't seem to fit, thought Kiba as he looked at all the books on the shelves. Once the two groups entered the room and the double doors behind them closed, Naruto invited both Tsunade and Gaara to take one of the three comfortable chairs in front of his desk, which they did. Hokage-san, Kazekage-san, it good to see you both, I hope that you haven't been waiting long. Only a few minutes Raikage-san, you secretary was quite courteous to us, replied Gaara. Yeah, you got quite a looker there, brat, joked Jiraiya, hoping to break the ice and make Naruto smile or something. Sadly this had the opposite effect to the one he had hoped for. Instead Naruto gave the Gama-senin a hardened stare and said, I would prefer if you refrained from making such remarks towards Nanao-chan Toad, since in most places it's considered rude to leer at another man's wife. At hearing this everyone thought the exact same thing, wife. Wait, are you saying she's another one of your wives? Asked Ino in surprise. Yes. Damn, how many wives those he have, thought Kiba, while also thinking at the same time, damn lucky son of a bitch. After a minute or two, the two groups of people got over their shock, over unknowingly meeting yet another one of Naruto's wives, and got back to the matter at hand. If I may, Raikage-san, when do we begin the talks over Konoha becoming a protectorate of the Alliance? Asked Tsunade, who still found it hard to come to terms with Konoha becoming a protectorate of the Heavenly Alliance. Danzo, Homura and Koharu were also of the same mind, since this was a sad day for them. Danzo himself gripped the cane that he was given earlier tightly, 17, when Tsunade said the words, Konoha, and protectorate. Since this went against everything that he stood and fought for over 70 years. Naturally he blamed Sarutobi and Tsunade, for Konoha's current condition, as well as Naruto. Since he believed that it was because of Tsunade's and the Sandaim's soft-hearted leadership that Konoha had become so weak, thereby allowing Naruto to take advantage of them, who should have been turned into a weapon for Konoha from the very beginning, according to Danzo's beliefs. The talks between both your villages and the Heavenly Alliance will not begin for several days, I'm afraid. Since the peace treaty between the Alliance and Iwa is taking place now, and will take several days to complete. After that we've to begin the talks for the villages and nations that are becoming part of the Heavenly, which will take several more days to complete. Once they are complete though, we will begin the talks with your villages, answered Naruto, where Gaara and Tsunade just nodded their heads in understanding. But until then, continued Naruto, if you're interested, you can have a tour of our village. Would that be really alright? Asked Tsunade, knowing how Naruto still had trust issues with Konoha, which weren't entirely unfounded. Yes it is, although you will be escorted by my shinobi throughout the tour and even then, you will not be permitted in restricted sections, due security reasons, Naruto answered. If that is the case, would it be possible spoke Tsunade, but before she could finish speaking, Naruto double doors burst opened. After which two blurs, one green and one pink flew right past the Konoha and Suna groups and collided with Naruto, knocking him off his chair and to the floor on his back. As soon as the double doors burst opened, Naruto's bodyguards, Killer Bee, Yugito, Okatsu and Fu appeared out of nowhere around Naruto's desk. But before they could act, they heard the giggling of two young girls and Naruto laughing. "Naruto, I'm sorry I couldn't stop them," cried Nanao, who was now carrying a very large book in her arm and was accompanied by amused Taira and concerned Takara. "Ha ha ha, it all right Nanao-chan, there's no real harm done," said Naruto as he picked himself off the ground holding two young girls who looked to be about 8 years old. The first girl, who Naruto was holding up in his right arm, had long green hair that fell below her shoulders and hazel eyes and wore a light green top, with long sleeves and shorts. The second girl, who Naruto was holding up in his left arm, had short pink hair and dark pink eyes and wore a simply red top and black shorts. At first glance both girls looked different, given their hair color and eyes. But after a closer look of them, the two groups noticed there was a strong facial resemblance between both of them, indicating they were related and most likely sisters or to be more precise twins, given how they were the same height and age. After a minute or so, Naruto placed both girls on the ground, and gave them both an amused but stern look. "Okay you two, what's with you both barging in here, knocking me to the ground? You know it's rude to interrupt someone when they're in a meeting." "We're sorry," replied the green-haired girl. "We just wanted to see the Konoha and Suna people for ourselves, since everyone is talking about them," said the pink-haired girl. "Plus we wanted to see you as well," finished the green-haired girl, with a puppy dog look, hoping to break Naruto. When Naruto heard this and saw the look the green-haired girl was giving him, he raised his left eyebrow, before he smiled and shook his head. "Okay you two, if you're here then where is your sister?" "I am right here," said another voice, where when everyone turned around, they saw a pretty young girl walk into the room from behind Nanao, Taira and Takara. The girl in question looked to be about 12 years old and had long blonde hair that reached down to her ankles and dark red eyes. She wore a short black vest-like blouse with a raised collar and a skirt that was cut off on the sides and bandage on her stomach and legs and long black elbow warmers on her arms. She was also developing quite well for a girl her age, as she started to develop two small mounds on her chest and a curvy-like figure. Given her appearance and development already, the girl was already a looker and it was obvious that she would develop further when she went into her teens. By which point when she turned 18, she would be a knockout and have to beat the boys back with a stick. But the thing that caught most people's attention was the blank expressionless look on her face, as if she had no emotions at all. "Pardon our interruption, but Nene and Yoshiko wished to see you and the Konoha and Suna representatives. I tried, but could not persuade them from barging into the room and disrupting your meeting with them," spoke the girl in a polite yet emotionless tone, as she walked over to her sisters and Naruto, using words that most children her age would never use. "That's quite all right, no real harm done," said Naruto kindly, as he patted the girl gently on the head, who remained completely expressionless. "Excuse me Raikage-san, but who exactly are these girls?" asked Gaara, who like everyone else in the Suna and Konoha groups, was wondering who the three girls were and what their relationship to Naruto was. "Oh yeah sorry about that," said Naruto with a small smile. "Hokage-san, Kazekage-san, everyone, allow me to introduce you to Nene, green-haired girl, Yoshiko, pink-haired girl, and Yami, blonde-haired girl, my daughters." That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.